Chapter 1019. The strange grandpa that Jyotian under the heavens was talking about was most likely Old Nine. With Old Nine's cultivation level, it was naturally very easy for him to recover Jyotian under the heavens' memories. However, some preparations were needed. Otherwise, Jyotian under the heavens would have already recovered her memories. And suddenly, Jiang Qin's eyes narrowed as he stared at Jyotian under the heavens. He actually saw a terrifying killing intent from her body. This murderous aura was so dense that it almost materialized. It was like a long saber standing behind her. Your Tao spirit is about to awaken. Jiang Chen was shocked. He knew how terrifying Jyotian under the heavens Tao spirit was. Previously, Jiang Chen knew that Jyotian under the heavens Tao spirit was a long knife, a greedy ghost. This Tao spirit was not greedy for money, not lustful, only lustful for the lives of all living beings in the world. Once this Tao spirit was born, Jiang Chen did not need to think too much. Jyotian under the heavens would definitely be devoured by the greedy ghost's killing intent and become a walking corpse without consciousness, only knowing how to kill. However, there was dust on the greedy ghost previously, which sealed the greedy ghost. But now, it seemed that the dust was about to disappear. I have to think of a way. Jiang Chen thought and asked, Little Xia, how do you feel now? Is there any part of your body that is uncomfortable? Jyotian under the heavens tilted her head and thought for a while. She frowned slightly and said, It seems a little uncomfortable, like this place is about to split open. But it doesn't hurt. Jyotian under the heavens held Jiang Chen's hand and pressed it on her chest. Jiang Chen did not react for a moment. When he touched that soft thing, his face turned red and he hurriedly retracted his hand. This girl really doesn't know anything, Jiang Chen muttered. His eyes shone brightly and the runes were as bright as the stars. He was observing Jyotian under the heavens soul. After a few breaths, Jiang Chen's face became very ugly. Looking carefully, Jyotian under the heavens soul was already blood red. Even the soul was dyed blood red. In the Sumeru world of the soul, there was killing intent everywhere, and a blood-red ocean was formed. Within the sea of blood, a long saber floated up and down. The terrifying killing intent was coming from this saber, and this saber was none other than the life grubber, the world's strongest killing weapon, life-greedy demon. Jiang Chen frowned. He couldn't think of a way to seal this life-greedy demon. Maybe Ninth Brother has a way, Jiang Chen muttered. At this moment, the void in front of the hall split open, and Old Ninth returned with a dark expression. The 10,000 Barrels Bank doesn't agree. They want you to go there personally. Old Nine said in a low voice. Even an emperor like you can't do it. Jiang Chen was stunned. As an emperor-level expert, no matter who was in this world, they would have to give him face, right? However, he did not expect Wantong Bank to be so confident that they would not even give face to the emperor. The 10,000 Barrels Bank has a strong foundation. I guess there will be a strong expert in this world. Otherwise, how could they not give face to me, the emperor? Old Ninth's face darkened. This trip to the 10,000 Barrels Bank was embarrassing. At this moment, Jiang Chen was also helpless. He really didn't want to go to the 10,000 Barrels Bank. After all, he still owed the 10,000 Barrels Bank a lot of money. If he went there and didn't come out, he would probably be dead. You're going with me? Jiang Chen said softly. If I go alone, I'm afraid it's very dangerous. All right, I was thinking of going there again. I want to see how much confidence and strength the 10,000 Pong Bank has to not give me face. Old Nine said, I want to go too. Jyotian jumped up and down and said, blinking his big watery eyes. If you don't let me go, I'll cry. Let's go then. With me around, no one will dare to hurt you. Old Ninth said. In the end, Old Ninth tore open the void again and brought Jiang Chen and Jyotian to the mountain gate of the 10,000 Barrels Bank. On the way, Jiang Chen carried Jyotian on his back and looked serious. He looked at Old Ninth and said after a few breaths, Do you know her Tao soul? The moment these words came out, Old Ninth was dumbfounded. He asked, What's wrong? You don't know? Jiangchen was shocked. However, after thinking about it, old Ninth had just been born. How could he have time to take care of Jiutian? She has a Tao soul, Jiangchen said. She's a greedy ghost. What? Greedy ghost? Old Ninth exclaimed when he heard this. That was because he knew what a greedy ghost was. Once this Tao soul was awakened, Jiutian would definitely be devoured. The greedy ghost is about to wake up. I just checked her spiritual world. The murderous intent inside has turned into an ocean. The dust on the greedy ghost is about to disappear. Jiangchen said, only Tianzhong and Tianxia are left of the direct descendants of the Nine Skies court. Old Nine said in a low voice, we can't lose anyone. Let's deal with your problem first. I'll think of something else, Old Ninth said. After a few breaths, the three of them walked out of the void and entered the mountain gate of the 10,000 Barrels Bank. The 10,000 Barrels Bank was located in a small world. This was their headquarters. Under normal circumstances, outsiders would have to report in advance if they wanted to enter the small world of the 10,000 Barrels Bank. However, to Old Ninth, what report was there to report? He was an Imperial Realm elite. He was giving the 10,000 Barrels Bank face by coming to the small world. After the three of them entered the small world, they came to a building. This was where the core members of the 10,000 Barrels Bank lived and cultivated. What are these? Old Ninth was stunned. He saw pieces of white paper floating in the air in front of him. Upon closer inspection, each piece of white paper had a few lines of words written on it. The words Tianchen were written at the bottom of the paper. These are all F** King promissory notes? After a few breaths, Old Ninth understood. The tens of thousands of notes floating in the air were all promissory notes written by Jiangchen in his previous life. Tianchen, you're finally here. At that moment, the villa master of the 10,000 Barrels Bank walked out of the main hall. When he saw Old Ninth, a tinge of fear flashed in his eyes. He saluted Old Ninth. When he saw Jiangchen, his eyes were about to spit fire. Big Villa Master, long time no see. I've missed you, Jiangchen said with a laugh. He pointed at the promissory notes floating in the air and said, Big Villa Master, what is the meaning of this? Do you think I'll go back on my word? Don't you know if you'll go back on your word? Big Villa Master said angrily. The anger in his eyes almost turned into murderous intent. When he had given Jiangchen credit, he, the Big Villa Master, had been the guarantor. After that, Jiangchen had died suddenly before he could return the money. This made him, the guarantor, very upset. He was almost kicked out of his position as the Big Villa Master by the elders of the 10,000 Barrels Bank. All these years, Big Villa Master had been missing Jiangchen. He regretted giving him credit in the first place. Chapter 1020. Ever since he knew that Jiangchen had been reborn, First Zhuangzhu had been looking forward to Jiangchen's return. He did not want Jiangchen's life. He only wanted Jiangchen to pay off these IOUs. Back then, when the experts did not appear, you, the Divine King, ruled the nine heavens. You were in the limelight for once. First Zhuangzhu said in a deep voice, Now, the Divine King does not have the final say in this world. It's time for you to pay back the debt you owed back then, right? I'll pay it back slowly. I won't go back on my word, Jiangchen said with a smile. He then pointed at the IOUs floating in the air and said, Put them away. They're so ugly. You know they're ugly? First Zhuangzhu was furious. Each of these IOUs was a huge sum of money. He suspected that the Jiangchen in this life did not have the ability to pay them back. But he still did not give up. So he asked Jiangchen to come to the 10,000 Barrel Bank to ask for an explanation. I heard that you looted the Dark God Palace's treasury some time ago. You should have money on you now, right? First Zhuangzhu raised his eyebrows and said, Isn't it time to pay it back? This? I've already used it up. Jiangchen shrugged and said, Reincarnation? I need a lot of cultivation resources. You know this too. What nonsense are you talking about? First Zhuangzhu's face suddenly darkened. He stared at Jiangchen and said, There are so many treasures in the Dark God Palace's treasury. You've used them all up so quickly? Don't bullshit me. If you don't pay back the money today, believe it or not, I won't let you walk out of this door. Jiangchen laughed. Anyway, he had made up his mind to go back on his word. Moreover, old Joe was also here. Jiang Chun did not believe that the 10,000-barrel bank could do anything to old Gio. Little guy, the 10,000-barrel bank's main business is business. If we hurt each other, we'll lose business. Old Gio said softly. Why? Today, I brought him here. If you don't let him leave safely, are you not giving me face? Wang. As soon as he finished speaking, a rumbling sound came from old Ninth's body. A terrifying emperor's aura erupted, and the space around him was crushed. However, what surprised everyone was that Manor Lord Great Manor did not show any fear when he faced the Ninth Emperor. He looked at the Ninth Emperor and cupped his hands. Then he slowly said, Ninth Emperor, you should know the reason why my 10,000-barrel bank has been able to stand until now. In this world, no one dares to claim to be invincible, and no one is invincible. If the Ninth Emperor thinks that he is invincible, then you can try it today. Who was Old Ninth? He was a giant from the prehistoric era, the old ancestor of the Nine Heavens dynasty. Since when had anyone dared to speak to him like this? Even monarchs of the same realm wouldn't dare to speak to him with such an attitude. In Old Ninth's ears, Manor Master's words were undoubtedly a threat. You're courting death. At this moment, Old Ninth didn't hesitate at all. With a shout, a strand of hair fell down. Chee! The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. The strand of hair was like a ray of light. It was like an indestructible blade that slashed towards Manor Lord Great Manor. You! Manor Lord Great Manor's expression changed drastically. Although he was confident, he was definitely no match for Old Ninth. In fact, Old Ninth's strand of hair was enough to kill him. Ninth Emperor, you're already so old. Why are you still so hot-tempered? Why are you being so calculative with a junior? All of a sudden, an indifferent voice was heard. Then, a strand of Old Ninth's hair was burned and turned into ashes. At the same time, an old man in a white robe appeared in front of Manor Lord Great Manor. Emperor! Jiangchen was shocked. The moment the old man appeared, he sensed that his aura was no weaker than Old Ninth's. Moreover, there was a picture of 9 white clouds on his robe. In the entire Nine Heavens divine world, there was only one clan that dared to have a picture of 9 white clouds on their robes. That was the Pingtian clan. No wonder Wantong Bank is so confident. So it's because they've joined the Pingtian clan in this life. Old Ninth was relieved. Then he curled his lips and said, Ping Si, although you're an emperor now, even if your father comes, he might not dare to interfere with my matters. When he said that, not only was Jiangchen moved, but even Manor Lord Great Manor's expression changed. Manor Lord Great Manor originally thought that with Ping Si of the Pingtian clan supporting him, he would be able to fight Old Ninth and even suppress him. After all, every single member of the Pingtian clan was extremely powerful, let alone an emperor. However, he never expected Old Ninth to be so calm in front of Ping Si. He did not even give Ping Si any face when he spoke. Moreover, after Ping Si asked, he smiled faintly and nodded. He said, Ninth Emperor's strength shakes the world. Of course I'm no match for you. However, Ping Si's expression suddenly froze when he said that. He said, but so what if you're strong? You alone can contend against my entire Pingtian clan? Old Ninth snorted coldly. He said nothing. Clearly, he felt rather helpless. After all, the Pingtian clan was just too powerful. According to what Old Ninth knew, there was more than one emperor in the Pingtian clan. He was the only emperor in the Nine Skies Empire right now. No matter what, I brought him here today. I have to take responsibility. After a moment of silence, Old Ninth said very sternly, he has to go back the same way he came. He can't lose a single hair. Ninth Emperor, look at what you're saying. Are we going to make things difficult for him? Ping Si smiled. Afterwards, Ping Si looked at Jiang Chun and asked with a smile, it's only right to repay a debt. Don't tell me you don't know this rule? Of course I know. I never said I wouldn't return it, Jiang Chen murmured. He thought that the treasures he had stolen from the Dark God Hall were probably going to be lost here today. Even if he gave all the treasures to Wantong Bank, it probably wouldn't be enough. However, the two emperors were going against each other today. If this matter wasn't handled well, it would only get bigger and bigger. Moreover, Jiang Chun was in the wrong in this matter. Cough, cough. That? I owed too much in my previous life. I have to slowly repay it in this life. Jiang Chun coughed a few times to hide his awkwardness. Hearing this, big landlord frowned. He knew that Jiang Chun was telling the truth. However, Jiang Chun had owed this debt for too long. If he couldn't collect it now, his position as big landlord might not be guaranteed. What made big landlord angry the most was that when Jiang Chun returned to Jiuxiao Divine World, he actually went to the Void God World to cause trouble and took away a few blessed lands that originally belonged to Wantong Bank. You already owed money, and you even stole my blessed lands. Your actions are too vile, big landlord said in a deep voice. I've already said it clearly. He definitely won't be able to repay it today, but he should, Old Ninth said. Also, today, that bone coffin must be returned to him. Once those words were spoken, Manor Master's expression turned incredibly ugly. What kind of joke is this? The debt hasn't been paid, and you still want to take back the bone coffin? Moreover, the bone coffin was sold to Wantong Bank by Luotian. Wantong Bank did indeed spend money to buy it. Chapter 10:21. They could give the bone coffin to Jiang Chun, but they had to redeem it. But the problem was that they had not repaid their previous debts, and now they wanted to redeem something. This was not appropriate, right? Wantong Bank is the #1 financial group in the Ninth Heaven Divine World. Do you still lack money? Old Jiu said. He thought that Wantong Bank was too stingy. Hearing this, big landlord's chest heaved up and down, and he almost vomited blood. That little money? You still have the face to say that. Ninth Emperor, I'm afraid you don't know how much he owes, right? Big landlord said in a deep voice. In my previous life, the things he needed for cultivation were all provided by Wantong Bank. When Tenshin Shinzo was established, the materials he needed were also provided by Wantong Bank. After that, the disciples of Tenshin Shinzo and his brothers needed cultivation resources. They were all provided by Wantong Bank, and he only wrote a few IOUs to us. He didn't even see a single cent. Speaking of this, Big Landlord was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Big Landlord, calm down. Don't be angry, Jiang Chen said lightly. If you get angry and hurt your body, who will collect the debt? You. Big Landlord's face turned pale, and he almost fainted. Is this something a human would say? He will pay a portion of the money first. You can return the bone coffin to him. And I can also promise Wantong Bank one thing, Old Jiu thought carefully. It was too difficult for Jiang Chun to pay all the money in one go. Juqian Dynasty was not that rich. Although he could help Jiang Chun pay off the debt, Juqian Dynasty would also go bankrupt. In that case, Old Jiu could only use his own money. However, Old Jiu did not have much money. Other than his cultivation, he did not have anything else. However, Old Jiu's cultivation was his most precious thing. At this moment, Big Landlord's eyes lit up when he heard Old Jiu's words. He said, Any request? Don't go overboard, Old Jiu said in a deep voice. Manor Master frowned and fell in a deep thought for a while. As a businessman, his mind was working quickly. He was thinking about what kind of request he should make to maximize his benefits. A few breaths later, the first Manor Master's eyes lit up. He said, When chaos descends, can the Nine Heavens Dynasty protect my 10,000 barrel bank? As soon as these words came out, Old Ninth's face turned ugly. One had to know that this chaotic era was rarely seen throughout history. Compared to the other chaotic eras in history, this one was especially terrifying. In fact, in this chaotic world, even the Emperor might not be able to survive. Although Old Ninth was strong, he still had to protect the Nine Skies Imperial Court. How could he have the time to protect the 10,000 barrel bank? What's more, wasn't the 10,000 Pong Bank related to the Heavenly Clan? With the protection of the Pingtian clan, What was the point of his protection? I can help 10,000 Pong Bank once. Old Nine said, if a king attacks 10,000 Pong Bank, I will help you once. Once? The first Manor Master frowned. He felt that this deal was not worth it. He pondered for a long time before his eyes lit up. He said, 10,000 Barrel Bank can cancel Jiang Chen's debt, but you have to help us 10 times. Okay. Jiang Chen agreed without waiting for Old Ninth to speak. He even patted Old Ninth's shoulder and said, you can do it. Old Ninth blinked his eyes. He was very confused. Big brother, the person who will help is not you, it's me. You make it sound so easy. However, it was still Jiang Chen who unsealed Old Ninth. This was a life-saving grace, so Old Ninth agreed after some thought. He would treat it as returning Jiang Chen's favor. I will help 10 times, Old Ninth said seriously. Moreover, I will only attack emperors. If any godly monarchs or divine venerables come looking for trouble, don't call me. Of course. The first Manor Master hurriedly nodded. He then took out a silk scroll and wrote a line of words. He placed it in front of Old Ninth and said, Ninth Emperor, it's better if you sign it. It's best to have proof. Did you write those IOUs like this? Old Ninth glanced at Jiang Chen with a strange expression. He realized that this guy was grinning happily. In the end, Old Ninth signed the silk scroll and reached an agreement with 10,000 Barrel Bank. Ping Si listened quietly from the side. He did not say anything. However, his heart was not calm. It was as if a storm was raging in his heart. After the Ninth Emperor came out, did his cultivation improve by a lot? Ping Si thought to himself. This was because he saw confidence in Old Ninth's eyes. Old Ninth had agreed to help 10,000 Barrel Bank. Moreover, these 10 opponents had to be emperors. This meant that Old Ninth was very confident. He had the strength to fight any emperor. This was absolutely terrifying. One had to know that even Ping Si's father, the number 3 person in the Pingtian clan, was not so confident. Could his cultivation be comparable to my grandfather's? Ping Si thought to himself. Suddenly, a heart-wrenching cry sounded from the side. Everyone looked back and saw a sea of blood rising from Jiao Tian's body. In the sea of blood, a long saber stood tall and emitted today's killing intent. At the same time, Jiao Tian's eyes lost their luster and became blood red. Even his hair was dyed red. Oh no! The dust on the greedy ghost has disappeared, Jiang Chen exclaimed. He could clearly feel that Jiao Tian was being devoured by the greedy ghost, especially her soul and will. They were about to disappear in the terrifying killing intent. Greedy ghost? This is... Ping Si and the first Manor Master were shocked. They were holding Jiao Tian up. Their eyes were filled with shock. The legendary strongest Dao soul of slaughter, the greedy ghost. Ping Si said solemnly, the dust has disappeared. She can't be saved. Does the Pingtian clan have a way? Old Ninth panicked. His face was red, and even his eyes were bloodshot. One had to know that only Jiao Tian and Jiao Tianzhong were left of the direct descendants of the Jiao Tian dynasty. These two were the future and hope of the Jiao Tian dynasty. Of course, whether it was the Ninth Emperor or Jiao Shun, they could have a few more children. However, the higher their cultivation, the more powerful their Dao arts were, and the lower their chances of having children. As long as they surpassed the Overgod realm, it was almost impossible for them to have children. It was because of this that the top factions and clans valued their descendants so much. Of course, our clan has a way, but why should we help you? Ping Si said with a frown, when times of prosperity and chaos arrive, who knows whether the Pingtian clan and the Jiao Tian dynasty will be friends or foes? Save her. I'll agree to any conditions. Old Ninth grabbed Ping Si's shoulder and said solemnly, she's one of the 2 remaining descendants of the Jiao Tian dynasty. We can't lose her. Chapter 10:22. The Ninth Brother panicked. Even though he was an emperor, there was nothing he could do against the life-greedy ghost. He grabbed Ping Si's shoulder. A sliver of weakness appeared in his eyes as an emperor in the end. who said that emperors were invincible. They just did not have emotions. Even if I agree to save her, I might not be able to save her. Ping Si sighed. The life-greedy ghost is the greatest way of slaughter in the world. Since ancient times, no one with this way of slaughter has been able to survive. I know, the ninth brother growled, but the Pingtian clan definitely has a way. You have an ancient heritage and a deep heritage. You definitely have a way. Of course, we have a way, but I can't guarantee that we'll be able to save her. Ping Si sighed. We've never encountered something like this before. We can only do our best. Thank you. The ninth brother lowered his head. To an emperor, lowering his head to another living being was the greatest form of courtesy. However, Ping Si shook his head and said, you have to promise me something, or there's no need for me to save her. What is it? Tell me. The ninth brother asked in a hurry. No matter what happens in the future, the Nine Heavens Empire cannot become enemies with the Pingtian clan, said Ping Si. If you agree to this condition, then swear a blood oath. I'll take her back to the Pingtian clan right now and help her purge the life-greedy ghost's killing intent. All right, as long as you can save her. The ninth brother nodded. Without even considering it, he immediately swore a blood oath. In the end, Ping Si left with Jiu Tian, while the ninth brother and Jiang Chan became worried. Ever since I became an emperor, this is the first time I've lowered my head, the ninth brother sighed. His mouth was filled with bitterness as he felt extremely helpless inside. The ninth brother had once thought that he would never lower his head. Even when the Nine Heavens Empire had almost been destroyed and he had been sealed in the Blood Moon, he had never lowered his head. But even he himself didn't expect that he, who had never lowered his head his entire life, would actually lower his head for a descendant of his. Perhaps this was kinship. Jiang Chun patted the ninth brother's shoulder and comforted him. The Pingtian clan has a deep heritage. They should be able to heal Jiu Tian. I hope so. The ninth brother sighed. He was not confident either. After all, Ping Si himself had said that he could only do his best. As for whether or not he could save the Nine Heavens, that was hard to say. This is the bone coffin you wanted. At this moment, the Grand Manor Master handed the coffin to Jiang Chun with an unpleasant expression and said, consider the previous matter as settled. From now on, don't even think about taking credit at my 10,000 barrels bank. Not even 1 cent. If I had known that you guys were so stingy and hard to get, I wouldn't have put it on credit. Jiang Chun curled his lips. Once those words were spoken, Great Manor Master almost exploded in anger. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such a shameless person. In the end, Jiang Chun and Old Ninth left and returned to the Nine Skies Imperial Court. As soon as he returned, Jiang Chun went straight to the back of the mountain and arrived at a secluded area. After setting up a spell formation, he began to study the bone coffin. This was something he found in a ruin in the forbidden area of the East Sea. It seemed to be related to his previous lives. At the same time, Jiang Chun also realized one thing. The forbidden area of the East Sea was definitely not ordinary. The 3 mountains were built in the forbidden area of the East Sea, and the bone coffin came from the forbidden area of the East Sea. Moreover, the southern wall was suspected to be in the forbidden area of the East Sea. Everything was connected together. Jiang Chun could not help but wonder what kind of place the forbidden area of the East Sea was. Could that place be the center of the divine world of the Nine Skies? Otherwise, why were all these mysteries and mysteries related to the forbidden area of the East Sea? When the great sect was destroyed, the sect leader was buried in this bone coffin. At this moment, Jiang Chun stared at the bone coffin. His mind was filled with the ancient words on the inscription tablet. The inscription tablet in the ruin had recorded some things about the great sect and even mentioned the words Tianqing and Tianxian. Jiang Chun guessed that the great sect was related to him. How do I open this? At this moment, Jiang Chun tried to open the bone coffin. He used all his strength, but he could not move the coffin lid at all. Then, he found that there were actually special runes on the bone coffin. After careful observation, these runes were like seals that originated from the Tao and were very profound. Fortunately, Jiang Chun was proficient in these things. After 10 days of observation, he finally figured out the method to break it. Finally, Jiang Chen broke the seal and pressed his hands on the bone coffin. With the push of his arms, the coffin lid was slowly pushed open. After 10 breaths of time, when the coffin lid was completely pushed open, Jiang Chen's expression froze. That was because the bone coffin was empty and there was no corpse. One had to know that the inscription tablet clearly recorded that the sect leader of the great sect was buried in this bone coffin. Moreover, the seal on the bone coffin was still there. Even if the corpse of the great sect leader was spiritual, it was impossible for him to come out of the bone coffin. Then, could it be that the things recorded on the inscription tablet were fake? If it's fake, there's no need, Jiang Chen muttered. What Jiang Chen didn't know was that as soon as he opened the coffin, a gloomy light floated out of the coffin and disappeared in an instant. At this moment, just as Jiang Chen was puzzled, a yellow light suddenly erupted from the bone coffin. The light was very bright and beautiful, but it carried a monstrous resentment. What is this? Jiang Chen was shocked and kept retreating until he was 1,000 meters away. Then he stopped and watched from afar. A few hours later, the yellow light in the bone coffin disappeared, and there were no changes in the surroundings. Only then did Jiang Chen return to the side of the bone coffin. Strange, what's with that light? Jiang Chen frowned and carefully observed the inside and outside of the bone coffin. There was nothing special about it. In fact, the bone coffin was beginning to turn black and was no longer as white as jade as before. In just 10 breaths of time, the bone coffin turned into a black coffin that emitted a rotten aura. Why does it feel like this thing was dug out from the netherworld? Jiang Chen muttered. This rotten aura was too terrifying, as if it did not belong to this world. This is... After a few breaths of time, Jiang Chen planned to close the bone coffin, but when he turned over the coffin lid, he discovered that there was a line of bloody words on the inside of the coffin lid. In the name of heaven, I control the power of the ecliptic Tao, create the world's holy religion, and save all living beings in the world. Jiang Chen was stunned in place. What was with the words on the coffin lid? Was it written by the living being buried in this coffin? But where was that living being? For a moment, all the hair on Jiang Chen's body stood on end. This was because he saw that among the bloody words, there were pieces of flesh and nails that had not yet rotted. The coffin lid was facing down. If one wanted to carve words on the inside of the coffin lid, it would have to be done before the lid was closed. Otherwise, there was only one possibility. There really was a living being buried in the coffin. Chapter 10:23. Jiang Chen's hair stood on end. What was happening in front of him was too strange. Where did the living being in the bone coffin go? Were the words on the coffin lid carved before the coffin was sealed? Or were they carved by the living being buried in the bone coffin after the coffin was sealed? Perhaps I shouldn't have opened this bone coffin, Jiang Chen whispered. He felt that this matter was not simple. At the same time, in a small world, a fisherman was sitting quietly beside a stream, fishing as usual. However, at this moment, his fishing rod began to vibrate, and even the fishing line snapped. At this moment, the fisherman's expression changed drastically. He put away his fishing rod and looked at it a few times before looking up at the sky. Is it a coincidence? Or is it fate? After a long time, the fisherman sighed slightly and said, "The one who tied the bell should untie it. What I did back then, will I return in this life?" With that, the fisherman shook his head and muttered, "He's already gone. What does it have to do with me? Do whatever you want." In the end, the fisherman regained his composure. Just like before, he sat cross-legged beside the stream and began fishing again. At this moment, Jiang Chen was still studying the bone coffin. He had always suspected that the bone coffin had something to do with him. After all, the inscription had mentioned the words Tianxian and Tianqing. However, when Jiang Chen thought about it carefully, it did not seem to be the case. The words Tianxian and Tianqing were indeed engraved on the inscription, but they were not connected together. Now that he thought about it carefully, Jiang Chen felt that he seemed to have misunderstood. Could it be that the words Tian Qing mentioned on the inscription aren't from my previous lives? Jiang Chen frowned and could not figure it out for a moment. Right at this moment, old Nine arrived. When he arrived and saw the bone coffin that had turned black, his expression changed drastically. He hurried to the bone coffin and sized it up carefully before exclaiming, "Sky-burying coffin? Sky-burying coffin?" Jiang Chen exclaimed when he heard that. Jiang Chen had heard of the sky-burying coffin before. It was said that there were 3 sky-burying coffins in the world, and Huang Tian was buried in them. Qing Tian, Chang Tian. Back in the yellow destruction, blue destruction, and blue destruction eras, the 3 heavens were slain. Their corpses were buried in the heaven-burying coffin and sealed away. However, the world had only heard of the sky-burying coffin and had never seen it before. Moreover, the people of the world had different understandings of the word heaven. Many people believed that the word heaven was nothingness. How could there be a body? How could there be a corpse after death? However, those who had reached a certain cultivation level and could see through the secrets of the heavens knew that the so-called heavens were merely cultivators who were even more powerful. They had flesh, blood, and consciousness. They even dominated the grand daos and laws of the 6 worlds. This sky-burying coffin can't be the one you took from the 10,000 Pong Bank, right? Old Nine said solemnly. Previously, the sky-burying coffin was snow-white like white jade. Old Ninth naturally did not think of the sky-burying coffin. But now, the coffin was completely black and filled with ecliptic chi. It was exactly the same as the sky-burying coffin in which Huang Tian was buried. Is his heaven really buried inside? Jiang Chen asked. It should be. Old Nine nodded. Back then, I also learned some things about the death of the 3 heavens. This coffin should be the sky-burying coffin in which Huang Tian was buried according to the ancient records. Old Nine frowned and looked at the open coffin lid. He asked doubtfully, "Where is the thing buried inside?" "There is nothing at all," Jiang Chen said. After opening the coffin, there is no living thing buried inside. However, Old Nine did not think so. He carefully observed the coffin. Then his eyes shone brightly. He formed a seal with both hands and shouted, "Appear!" Buzz! As soon as he finished speaking, ripples appeared in the coffin. At the same time, a black fog rose. Then, the black fog dissipated, and a beautiful woman appeared in the coffin. She seemed to be in a deep sleep, lying quietly in the coffin. Layers of ecliptic chi flowed around her body. Green lotuses of the Great Path floated around her body. One could vaguely see runes formed by the Great Path flowing around her body. This person can't be Huang Tian, right? Jiang Chen was a little confused. Was this the legendary heaven? Oh no, she has run away. Old Nine's face darkened as he stared at the woman. After a long time, he sighed. Her soul has run away. Only this body is left. Is it a blessing or a curse? Jiang Chen asked. Old Ninth didn't know what to say for a while. This was because no one knew why they had to kill the 3 heavens. The world only knew one thing. If the 3 heavens were still around, the south wall would not collapse. The living beings of the greater thousand world would not be able to enter the 6 realms. This was because the 3 heavens were the soul of the 6 realms. They were the will of the 6 realms. If the 3 heavens did not die, the south wall would not collapse. Just like now, if the 3 heavens were still around, how could the living beings of the greater thousand world enter the 6 realms? I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. The things that happened in those 3 eras were too strange. Old Nine said in a low voice, "Perhaps the Pink Tian clan knows the truth. After all, they were the main force when the 3 heavens were killed." Then what about this corpse? Jiang Chen asked. He felt guilty and muttered, "Did I get into trouble?" "Maybe you did, or maybe it's a fortuitous encounter," Old Nine said. Misfortune and fortune are interdependent. Perhaps Huang Tian's birth was already destined. With that, Old Nine closed the coffin and carved layers of seals on it. He said, "Seal it first. It might be useful in the future." However, just as Old Nine closed the coffin, the seals on it disappeared. At the same time, the coffin lid was pushed open. At this moment, Jiang Chun and Old Nine were shocked. They hurriedly retreated, thinking that Huang Tian had come back to life. However, a few breaths later, they discovered that things did not seem to be so simple. Could the legend be true? The one who tied the bell should untie it. Old Nine frowned. He did not explain in detail. Instead, he looked at Jiang Chun and said, "Go close the coffin." Me? Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He thought, even an emperor like you can't close the coffin. You want me, a god, to close it? Can I do it? However, after Jiang Chun closed the coffin, everything was very quiet and normal. Nothing strange happened. However, when Jiang Chun was 1,000 meters away from the coffin lid suddenly opened on its own. From now on, you can't be more than 1,000 meters away from the coffin, Old Nine said. Looks like the legend is true. Whoever opens the sky-burying coffin will be the coffin keeper. Huang Tian's soul has already escaped. Before long, she'll return and take back her body. At that time, whether it's a blessing or a curse, it'll all depend on your own fortune, Old Nine sighed. I have a cold and a fever of 39 degrees. I really have a headache and can't write. I'll make up for it in a few days. The golden age is about to descend. Everyone wait. The main character is about to rise. It's about to explode. Chapter 10:24. Nine clearly knew some things about John Santion back then, but as for what exactly happened back then, it was also hard for him to say clearly. He had only heard of the saying, "Whoever tied the bell must untie it." And now, Jiang Chun became the coffin keeper, making him even more convinced that these words were true. But to Jiang Chun, it was very depressing. Finally opening the bone coffin with great difficulty. In the end, he did not obtain anything, but inexplicably became the coffin keeper. What made him most uncomfortable was that this bone coffin could not be more than 1,000 meters away from him in the future. Once succeeded, the bone coffin would open by itself. Regarding this, Jiang Chun did not care. Open then open. What's the big deal? But Nine told Jiang Chun that if the bone coffin was always in an open state, then Huang Tian would be able to find his physical body very soon. At that time, when Huang Tian came into being, whether it was a blessing or a curse was hard to say. According to the current situation, Nine advised Jiang Chun to bring this heaven-burying coffin by his side and seal the coffin lid. It would not be too late to make a decision after the situation was clear. Helpless, Jiang Chun could only carry this heaven-burying coffin on his back, feeling uncomfortable all over. Especially when he thought that this heaven-burying coffin still had Huang Tian's corpse inside. Jiang Chun's hair stood on end, as if there was something staring at him from behind. Carrying the heaven-burying coffin on your back might be a blessing for you, or it might be a fortuitous opportunity. Nine comforted. However, Jiang Chun glanced sideways and asked huffily, "If it were you, would you carry it?" This? Nine was speechless. If it were anyone else, they would not want to carry a coffin, right? Not to mention that it would damage their image. Just the corpse of Huang Tian inside the coffin made people's scalps tingle. Although Huang Tian's appearance was really stunning. Little Xia has been to the Pink Tian clan for some time, right? Want to go take a look? Jiang Chun asked. The moment these words came out, Nine's expression turned serious, and he said with a nod, "Going right away." Boom! However, before the two of them could walk out of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court's gates, a loud explosion resounded through the entire Nine Heavens divine world. It was as if the entire world had exploded. The deafening explosion caused everyone to feel dizzy. Some people even fainted on the spot. At the same time, the Grand Tao in the heavens and the earth underwent a change. The Grand Tao seemed to have been shattered by the explosion. Many cultivators could feel that their foundations and Tao fruits were affected. But in next to no time, the Grand Tao underwent another change. It seemed as if the pure energy of the Grand Tao had suffused the air and sprinkled down to every corner of the world. It was like a fog, but also like a rainbow floating in the air. People only needed to wave their hands to absorb the power of the great Tao into their bodies, and their cultivation would improve by a lot. A golden age has come. Yin-yang upheaval. At this moment, everyone looked up at the sky, in the direction of Yongzhou, where yin and yang intersected. A bright sun had appeared beside the blood moon. The radiant sun was extremely bright, but it gave off a gloomy and pale aura. Under the radiance of the sun and moon, the intersection of yin and yang finally collapsed. Wang, accompanied by a few vibrations, the intersection of yin and yang collapsed, and a gloomy black door appeared. Behind the door, there was a strong aura of the netherworld, and there were even figures flashing behind the door. After a dozen breaths, a living creature walked out from behind the door of the netherworld. When his feet stepped on the land of the living, he could not help but look up to the sky and roar, "The living! I'm finally here!" "Emperor!" many people exclaimed. They did not expect that the first person to step into the living after the yin-yang upheaval would be an emperor. Following that, a few more people walked out from the door of the netherworld. Their auras were extremely powerful, and the weakest was a supreme god. An hour later, at the intersection of yin and yang, a total of 3 emperors of the netherworld, 5 supreme gods, and many main gods of the netherworld appeared. However, if one looked carefully, there were still many people standing on the other side of the netherworld's door. In front of them, there was a surging river that seemed to be blocking their path. Moreover, someone saw a living creature of the netherworld trying to cross the river, but he was accidentally swept by the river and disappeared immediately, not even leaving behind a corpse. "That's the Luo River," Jiangchen said softly. At the same time, someone also noticed that the living creatures who had entered the living world were standing in place without moving. They seemed to be injured and were absorbing the vitality of heaven and earth to heal their injuries. The rumors are true. The Luo River separates the 2 realms of yin and yang. If you want to enter the living world from the netherworld, you have to cross the Luo River and pay a price, someone said. However, this so-called price was nothing to supreme gods and emperor-level experts. This price would at most cause them to be slightly injured, but it would not take their lives. Where is the spirit of the Luo River? Another 2 hours later, one of the 3 emperors of the netherworld spoke. His eyes opened, and the universe turned upside down. The great Tao turned into black lotuses that floated around him. He was using his divine ability to find Luoshan. This was because if he killed Luoshan, the Luo River would disappear. When that time came, the living creatures of the netherworld would not have to pay any price to enter the living world. A filthy place, a rotten world. From today onwards, everything will be destroyed. Before the emperor of the netherworld could find Luoshan, the voice of the Red Lotus Venerable came from the sky. Then, many people saw that in the far east of the 9 heavens divine world, rays of light shot into the sky and illuminated a city wall. No one knew how tall the city wall was, and it looked very illusory, like a layer of fog. It went deep into the entire 9 heavens divine world and surrounded the 6 realms. It was like a wall that surrounded the entire 6 realms. At this moment, the city wall was collapsing, turning into wisps of light and dissipating. After a dozen breaths, the entire city wall collapsed and disintegrated, leaving no trace behind. South Wall. That's the South Wall. It's collapsing. At this moment, the living creatures of the world cried out in alarm, and some people's faces were filled with fear. Boom! At the same time, a group of experts broke through the clouds and swooped down towards the 9 heavens divine world like meteors. A group of dirty ants in the burial ground. Today we will clean this place. They will all be destroyed. Along with a few roars, a group of people led by the Red Lotus Venerable passed through the clouds. It was as if they had sensed the aura of the emperors of the netherworld and rushed towards them. I have said that when I arrive, I will wash the burial ground with blood. Today, I will kill the so-called invincible emperor in your eyes. After a dozen breaths, the Red Lotus Venerable and his group finally arrived. At a glance, there were a total of 13 people in the Red Lotus Venerable's group. The strongest among them was the Red Lotus Venerable, whose cultivation level was at the level of ultimate God. The other few people's cultivation levels were about the same, around the level of lower ultimate God. These 13 living creatures from the great thousand world were not afraid when they encountered the 3 emperors and 5 ultimate gods of the netherworld. Chapter 10:25. The arrival of Red Lotus Venerable and the others stunned the group of people from the underworld. They looked at Red Lotus Venerable and the others with strange expressions, as if they were looking at idiots. "You want to kill us?" The Emperor of the Underworld raised his eyebrows and said with a strange expression, "Are you sure you didn't find the wrong people? You're just creatures from the burial ground, a filthy place. So what if you're an emperor? In the eyes of the creatures of the great wide world, you're like ants." Red Lotus Venerable was very arrogant, and the anger that he had suppressed for a long time was finally vented. Then he took a step forward and red lotuses bloomed on his body. Then they turned into a seal and pressed down on the leading emperor. The Emperor of the Underworld was stunned for a moment. Looking at the seal that was rushing over, he raised his eyebrows, and a halo burst out beside him. Then the seal dissipated, and even Red Lotus Venerable was sent flying. His body cracked, and his soul was almost destroyed. What? Impossible! How can the Emperor of the Burial Ground have such strength? At this moment, the creatures from the great wide world were terrified. In the great wide world, they had always heard that the cultivators of the burial ground were very weak. Even the cultivation of an emperor could only be compared to the cultivation of a divine venerable in the great wide world. Therefore, Red Lotus Venerable and the others had always thought that the burial ground was not worth paying attention to. Even in the face of an emperor, they were not afraid at all. However, the reality was often so cruel. Are the people of the great wide world so arrogant now? The Emperor of the Underworld muttered. He looked at the 2 emperors beside him and asked, "Was it like this in the past?" In the past, the great wide world came to the 6 realms a few times, but they were all obedient. I've never seen anyone so arrogant. This time it's a little strange." The other 2 emperors frowned. What was wrong with the great wide world? Did they really treat the 6 realms as ants? Run! At this moment, Red Lotus Venerable and the others were completely flustered. The intelligence was wrong. The emperors of the 6 realms were still emperors, and their combat strength was invincible. "You want to destroy the 6 realms? Don't go." The leader of the emperors raised his eyebrows and gently pushed his palm forward. His emperor chi exploded like a tsunami and instantly drowned Red Lotus Honored Sage and the others. Then the palm exploded like fireworks. Along with it, Reverend Red Lotus and the others exploded as well. Perhaps no one would have thought that a group of people who had been watching from the outside world for so long would die as soon as they entered the 6 realms. However, it was understandable. After all, the beings of the great wide world had overestimated themselves. They believed that a divine venerable could compete with the emperors of the 6 realms, or even crush them. I don't know where he got his confidence and courage from. You stay here and receive the others from the Yin and Yang clans. I'll go kill the spirit of Luo Shui, said the leading emperor. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at the Pingtian clan. Wang, accompanied by the sound of the air being torn apart, the monarch vanished, and when he reappeared, he was already before the entrance of Flourishing Age Academy. Obviously, he had found Luo Xin. However, before he could do anything, Ping Si appeared at the entrance. He frowned and asked, "You want to start a war with my Pingtian clan as soon as you arrive?" "We can start a war, but there's no need for that." The monarch of the underworld shook his head and said straightforwardly, "Hand over the spirit of Luo Shui, and I can leave." So you want to start a war?" Ping Si's eyes narrowed as he said coldly, "Do you know that the current Luotian is a member of my Pingtian clan?" "So what?" "He's not a direct descendant of the Pingtian clan." The monarch of the underworld said softly, "There's no need for the Pingtian clan to start a war with my underworld for an outsider, right?" Ping Si's expression could not help but become stern when he heard that. Handing over Luotian would be admitting defeat without a doubt. Not only would that hurt the morale of the Six Realms, but it would also embarrass the Ping Tian clan. After serious consideration, Ping Si clasped his hands towards the monarch of the underworld and said, "Please enlighten me." "Oh, it seems like this war is unavoidable," the monarch of the underworld said. The monarch of the underworld said softly, "But that's right. I didn't enter the world of the living just to find that person. The two worlds of yin and yang are fated to merge, and the beings of the underworld will definitely become the rulers of this world." Boom! However, just as the monarch of the underworld finished speaking, a crack suddenly appeared in the sky. Everyone raised their heads and discovered that the sky seemed to have cracked open. They could see the scenery of the outer realms. The stars rotated, and their radiance accompanied the coldness and darkness of the universe, as if describing the ruthlessness and beauty of the great Tao. At the same time, a man with golden hair stood in the crack. His eyes were like torches, as if they could illuminate the past, present, and future. "You're the one who injured my great thousand realms?" At that moment, golden light shot out from his eyes, pressing towards the monarch of the underworld. Cultivators of the underworld have never feared anything. The monarch of the underworld did not hesitate at all. After letting out a long roar, he actually charged out. Afterwards, everyone only saw light and ripples of the great Tao spread out in outer space, and there were even explosions. The monarch from the underworld was too powerful. He actually chose to fight. If the cultivators of the Yang realm had half the courage of the creatures of the underworld, they wouldn't have been bullied to such an extent. Sigh. Many creatures of the Yang realm sighed. No one had expected that the first real battle with the Great Thousand Realms would be started by the monarch of the underworld. Many people were looking forward to it, hoping that the monarch of the underworld would win. Even the creatures of the Yang realm were cheering for him in their hearts. However, in just half an incense stick's time, the monarch of the underworld returned. His body was injured, and there was a crack between his brows. His aura was fluctuating, and his injuries were not light. At this moment, he returned to the intersection of yin and yang. His gaze was fixed on the sky, and the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a sneer with a trace of contempt. The Great Thousand Realms boasted of being high and mighty, suppressing the Six Realms in everything. But now it seems that's all there is to it, the monarch of the underworld said. As soon as he said this, everyone realized that the golden-haired man from the Great Thousand Realms was only left with a soul. His physical body had been beaten up and was currently being reforged. Reddish-gold blood essence scattered in the air, like golden stars that filled the sky. The golden-haired man remained silent. In a few breaths of time, his physical body was reforged. Then, the golden light in his eyes erupted again. The Six Realms are indeed powerful, the golden-haired man said softly. His body was overflowing with fighting spirit. He pointed at the monarch of the underworld and said, "Come here, do you dare to fight again?" When the monarch of the underworld heard this, his expression changed. He stared at the golden-haired man in surprise and thought to himself, "This person's injuries have healed?" One had to know that in the battle, just now, both of them were seriously injured. In fact, the creatures of the underworld were certain that the other party's injuries were definitely worse than his. Chapter 10:26. The Emperor of the Underworld was shocked and even more puzzled. Could it be that the other party's injuries had already healed? Otherwise, how could he have the confidence to challenge him again? If the Emperors of the Six Realms are only at your level, then the Six Realms should indeed be destroyed, the golden-haired man said softly, looking high and mighty. His hair danced in the wind, and his golden robe made him look like a golden sun. "I think you really don't know what death is." The Emperor of the Underworld's leader had a gloomy expression. He condensed his blood essence, and his blood energy rushed into the sky like a long dragon. Black runes were everywhere around him. Those were the most powerful great Tao of the underworld. In a few breaths of time, his injuries had also healed, and the two emperors beside him stepped out at the same time. At this moment, the three emperors from the underworld came out together and charged towards the golden-haired man. 3 emperors? So what? My royal family is not afraid. The golden-haired man let out a long roar and revealed his background. He should be from a very powerful family in the boundless world. Boom! Next, a few people fought fiercely. The sky seemed to be blooming with endless fireworks. Great Tao runes collided and were constantly annihilated. Everyone found it hard to believe that the golden-haired man was actually so powerful. He fought the 3 emperors of the underworld alone and actually didn't lose for a while. Moreover, some people saw very clearly that the 3 of them were actually showing signs of being suppressed by the golden-haired man when they attacked together. Too strong. Is this the strength of a powerhouse from the boundless world? Someone exclaimed, and his heart fell to the bottom. If the emperors of the boundless world were all like this, then the 6 realms would indeed be in danger. After all, the 6 realms now existed in name only. Because of the foreign realm, there was only one divine realm left in the 6 realms. It was too difficult to fight against the boundless world with the power of the divine realm. Moreover, everyone could see that the cultivators from the boundless world were indeed very strong. Generally, they were much stronger than the cultivators of the 6 realms. It's over. I can't suppress them anymore. Just as the 4 emperors were fighting in the sky, Jiang Qin's expression was very ugly in the back mountain of the 9 Heavens dynasty. Since the arrival of Venerable Red Lotus and the others, the bone coffin had undergone some changes. The coffin trembled as if the lid was about to be opened. At first, Jiang Qin could only use his hands to press down on the coffin lid. But now, with the arrival of the Emperor of the Great Thousand World, Jiang Qin's entire body was lying on the coffin. But even so, the coffin lid still shook violently, almost flipping Jiang Qin over. "Old 9! The coffin lid can't hold it down." Jiang Qin cried out in alarm, wanting old Jiao to help. However, after a few breaths of time, old 9 didn't appear, as if he wasn't in the 9 Heavens imperial court. Didn't they say that only Huang Tian's corpse was left in the sky-burying coffin? Why was it that the coffin lid was about to collapse? Could it be that the corpse has gained sentience? Jiang Qin was shocked. Just a bunch of ants. After a dozen or so breaths, several explosions suddenly came from the sky, followed by an extremely contemptuous voice. This voice came from the golden-haired man. At the same time, the fireworks that filled the sky dissipated, and the 3 emperors from the netherworld fell from the sky like kites with broken strings, heavily falling to the ground. No one knew whether they were dead or alive. On the other hand, although the golden-haired man's body was stained with blood and his hair was a little messy, he was fine. His aura was still very strong, like an indestructible golden sun, hanging in the sky, intimidating the hearts of all living beings in the 9 Heavens divine realm. I know that there are people in the 6 realms who want to submit to the Great Thousand World. The golden-haired man said contemptuously, "It's a pity that the dirty creatures from this burial ground don't even have the qualifications to submit to our Great Thousand World. In a few days, the burial ground will be destroyed." However, just as the golden-haired man finished speaking, many people heard an earth-shattering explosion coming from somewhere. At this moment, Jiang Qin was dumbfounded. The lid of the bone coffin was lifted, and Huang Tian's corpse suddenly stood up. Jiang Qin was shocked, and he did not understand what was going on. Could it be that the corpse was really sentient? Before Jiang Qin could react, suddenly, a yellow light burst out from the corpse, turning into runes and poured into Jiang Qin's body. At this moment, Jiang Qin's eyes were filled with pain, as if his soul and body were being devoured. He gradually lost control of his body. However, at the same time, an indescribable power burst out from his body, giving him an illusion that he was invincible. Of course, all of this was not the key. The key was that after the power in his body suddenly burst out, he was actually controlled and rushed into the sky. At this moment, The living beings in the nine heavens divine realm saw a shocking scene. They saw a living being shrouded in yellow chi. His appearance could not be seen clearly, but he gave people a feeling of invincibility. He rushed up like a golden rock, soaring 90,000 miles into the sky, straight into the clouds. Boom! Then, without waiting for the crowd to react, the living being who was shrouded in yellow chi punched out. The fist radiance was like a vast ocean, drowning the blonde man in an instant. "You're courting death." Under the fist radiance, the blonde man roared angrily, and then there was an earth-shattering explosion. However, in just a few breaths' time, the crowd saw the blonde man throw away half of his body and run away in a panic. Who is that? So powerful. He actually beat back the golden-haired emperor all by himself. The crowd exclaimed, and they were even more emotional. They seemed to have seen hope. "Don't! Let him go! Don't chase after him." At this moment, the living being who was shrouded in yellow chi was roaring angrily in his heart, and there was a trace of bitterness in his heart. And this person was Jiang Chun. His body was out of control, and he actually chased after the blonde man. Then, in the eyes of the crowd, Jiang Chen's body was like a rock piercing through space. With a shake of his arms, he slapped the blonde emperor down from the sky. He chased after him. So fierce. There's such a fierce person in the world of the living. Which force is he from? The crowd exclaimed. Then, they saw Jiang Chen punch down and completely destroy the body of the blonde emperor. However, as an emperor, it was difficult for him to truly die. The blonde emperor roared angrily and burned part of his essence. His soul turned into a ray of light and escaped into the void. Only then did he escape. Take it easy. Don't chase after him. What if there's a large group of emperors waiting outside? Jiang Chun felt bitter in his heart. He knew that the power in his body most likely came from Huang Tian. However, why did Huang Tian's power suddenly erupt? Why did he attack the living beings of the upper-class world? Also, what was going on with this power? Was he going to control his body forever? Then, wasn't this no different from being possessed? But this feeling of invincibility is really good, Jiang Chen muttered in his heart. Chapter 10:27. The golden-haired emperor was extremely powerful. He fought the three emperors of the underworld alone and was not at a disadvantage. He even suppressed the three of them. In the eyes of many people, this kind of posture was invincible. However, no one expected that a mysterious creature shrouded in ecliptic chi would appear out of nowhere and chase after the golden-haired emperor to beat him up. This degree of ferocity really refreshed everyone's understanding of the emperor. "There is always someone better than you," someone exclaimed. At this moment, Jiang Chen's heart was very bitter. He enjoyed this feeling of invincibility, but at this moment his body was out of control. After the golden-haired emperor escaped, Jiang Chen still stayed in the outer realm. Facing the endless stars and darkness, he stood there quietly, like a statue. Jiang Chen was screaming in his heart, "Hurry up and go back." However, the violent power in his body seemed to have its own consciousness. It guarded this place and refused to move an inch. "Why aren't you leaving? Brother, if you have consciousness, hurry up and leave. There is more than one emperor in the great wide world." Jiang Chun roared in his heart, extremely angry. "How dare you? There is an emperor like you in the burial ground?" "That's right." Interesting. Half a day later, in the outer realm, on the other side of the endless starry sky, two loud voices came with boundless confidence and arrogance. When Jiang Chun heard this, he subconsciously wanted to run. However, his body was out of control. "I say, brother, don't mess with me. I'm only in the heavenly god realm." Jiang Chen's face turned green. However, the power in his body was not affected at all. It still controlled Jiang Chen's body and stood there, as if it was going to fight the two emperors. After a dozen breaths, 3 streams of light flew over from the other side of the starry sky. Upon closer inspection, it was not 2 emperors, but 3. Moreover, one of them was the golden-haired emperor who had escaped earlier. "You humiliated me. You will die today," the golden-haired emperor roared. Previously, he was defeated and half of his body was cut off. He was forced to burn his origin energy to escape. This was undoubtedly a humiliation to him. Now, he had called for help, and these two people were not weaker than him. I can speak now." At the same time, Jiang Qin found that he could actually speak. However, the other parts of his body were still under the control of that power. At this moment, Jiang Qin was at his wit's end. What else could he do? "Let's play. You're just 3 ants from the outer realms. My 6 realms isn't a place you can touch." Jiang Qin deliberately changed his voice, fearing that others would recognize him. At the same time, as soon as he finished speaking, the energy within his body suddenly went berserk, and he charged out. Oh my God, he's doing it again. Is he going to fight the 3 emperors of the great 1,000 world by himself? How dare you? My young world actually has such a great person. Everyone cried out in shock, their eyes full of fanaticism and worship. Some people were even trying to find out more about Jiang Qin's background. However, Jiang Qin's entire body was enveloped by the aura of the ecliptic path, concealing his aura. Even the great Tao couldn't get close to him. At this moment, he could be said to be invincible. When he charged out, his fists pushed out horizontally, and like 2 brilliant suns, they tore through the void. The stars in the outer realms were resplendent, but under these 2 fists, they were as weak as fireflies, pitifully weak. Boom! Boom! In an instant, a fierce battle broke out, and the sound of battle rang out. The outer realm seemed to have turned into a chaotic domain, and the 4 emperors fought fiercely. However, after only a dozen breaths, the golden-haired emperor was sent flying. Half of his body collapsed, and even half of his soul was torn apart. He wanted to escape, but this time, Jiang Qin wouldn't give him any chance. A palm print crossed the sky and directly crushed the void. It even kneaded the space within 10,000 miles into a piece, and even the golden-haired emperor's soul and body were kneaded into it. Bang! Then Jiang Qin suddenly clenched his fist, and that piece of space collapsed and was annihilated. Even the golden-haired emperor was crushed to death, turning into powder and dissipating from this world. An emperor of a generation had fallen. After a few breaths, a beam of ecliptic path energy erupted like an azure dragon. As the dragon roared, it descended from the sky and swallowed another emperor. Bang! This emperor was very powerful. The divine ring on his body erupted, and the emperor's power surged. He tore the dragon's head apart and attacked. However, what awaited him was 9 streaks of ecliptic path energy that transformed into an azure dragon. Boom! Boom! After 9 consecutive explosions, the emperor was pushed back a great distance. The divine ring on his body was annihilated, and even his soul was trembling. At this moment, the emperor was shocked. He knew that things were not good, and he turned around and escaped into the void. Then, the other emperors saw that the situation was not right and also turned to run. "I will guard the 6 realms." At this moment, Jiang Qin roared. His voice was so loud that it resounded throughout the 6 realms. Of course, Jiang Qin was just bored. In this battle, he did not make a move at all. It was the power in his body that was attacking, and he was bored, so he just roared a few times. After all, this kind of invincible moment was very rare. This person is too strong. There is still hope for the 6 realms. He's too fierce. He killed a golden-haired emperor and repelled 2 emperors at the same time. Is his strength invincible? Everyone was amazed. Even the 3 emperors of the netherworld were moved. They could see that this person was not a creature of the netherworld. There's such an emperor in the mortal world. Impossible, right? The mortal world has long declined. The laws of the netherworld are incomplete. How can an emperor with such combat power be born? The 3 emperors of the netherworld had recovered from their injuries. At this moment, they stood at the intersection of yin and yang and looked up at Jiang Qin. Their faces were filled with shock and confusion. At this moment, Jiang Qin's heart was bitter because the power in his body was still controlling him. Moreover, the power in his body was very restless, as if it wanted to chase after him. "Don't, brother. Take it easy." Jiang Qin felt bitter in his heart. Fortunately, after a few breaths, the power began to decline, and it drove Jiang Qin's body into the void. After a few breaths, he returned to the back mountain of the Nine Skies Imperial Court and returned to the side of the sky-burying coffin. At this moment, the power completely disappeared, and Jiang Qin also controlled his body. Then Jiang Qin closed the coffin's lid. He weaved Madra with both of his hands to seal the coffin one after another. "What the hell? What's going on?" Jiang Qin stared at the sky-burying coffin in surprise. He knew that the power most likely belonged to Huang Tian. But why would Huang Tian's power enter his body? And why would Huang Tian fight against the emperor of the upper-class world? "May I ask for your name, fellow cultivator?" Suddenly, an ethereal voice came from the outer realm. It was like the sound of a bell, but also like the sound of chanting scriptures. At the same time, a man shrouded in Buddhist light appeared. A lotus platform under his feet bloomed with 9 colors. This was a Buddhist emperor. Buddhist emperor. Chapter 10:28. The golden-haired emperor had been killed. The other 2 emperors had escaped. And now the Buddha emperor had come. Moreover, after the Buddha emperor came to the 6 realms, he did not enter directly, but stopped outside. He was obviously looking for Jiang Qin. "Hey, you still want to find me? I'm not coming out. What can you do to me?" Jiang Qin cursed silently. He did not want to face the emperor again. Although that feeling was invincible, it was also frightening. If the power in his body suddenly disappeared during the fight, then Jiang Qin would die suddenly. However, just when Jiang Qin thought that everything would be fine, the coffin lid was opened again. It was as if Huang Tian's corpse had spirituality and sensed that the emperor of the great world had appeared again. The coffin lid could not be held down anymore. "It can't be right." Jiang Qin's heart trembled. Before he could run far, his body was controlled again. After that strand of familiar energy swept through his body once more, and it controlled his body to charge towards the outer realm. All right. Since I can't help it, I might as well pretend to be happy." Jiang Qin sighed and was forced to come to the outer realm in a few breaths. Then Jiang Qin shouted, "Are you here to die? Get lost." "Oh my God! This emperor of the Yang realm is too tough. Fierce. Show the might of the 6 realms." It's a blessing to have such a person in the Yang realm. People were praising Jiang Qin, and some people were even worshipping him. At this moment, Jiang Qin did not make a move because the power in his body was trembling, as if it was afraid of the Buddha Emperor's strength. Similarly, the Buddha Emperor did not make a move because he was also afraid of Jiang Qin. "Fellow cultivator, why don't you show your true appearance?" the Buddha Emperor asked. "My appearance is not seen by the world. Seeing it, I live and die." Jiang Qin deliberately mystified. Anyway, he was forced to fight, and his body was not controlled, so he could only be forced to act cool. After all, Jiang Qin could only move his mouth. Everything else was under the control of the power in his body. "Could it be that you are the protector of the 6 realms?" The Buddha Dharch frowned. There was a tinge of fear in his voice. "Guardian? So what? In my eyes, I am the heavens of the 6 realms." Jiang Qin's bragging was out of control. "Achoo! Which bastard is scolding me?" At the same time, in a small world, the angler suddenly sneezed. He was puzzled. In this era, there were still people who knew about him. There were still people who would miss him. After that, he walked out of the small world. When he raised his head and saw the Buddha Dharch in the sky, his face darkened as he thought to himself, "Is this bastard Baldy scolding me?" However, in the next moment, the fisherman's face not only darkened, but also turned green. It was only because he had heard Jiang Qin say, "Protector of the 6 realms? He probably doesn't have the guts to come out, right? Today, I'm enough. I really can't stand it." The fisherman's mouth twitched. He was really not used to hearing this. In the next moment, he held the fishing rod in his hand and took a step forward. His figure appeared outside the realm. Then, the fisherman pointed at Jiang Chun with the fishing rod in his hand and said, "Where did this little bastard come from? How dare you slander me behind my back?" At this moment, Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. This was because he saw that this person was the fisherman. Previously, Jiang Chun was robbed by the woman in the ice coffin. It was the fisherman's disciple who saved him. After that, the two of them met once. The fisherman even brought Jiang Chun into a stone forest. That was the resting place of an invincible being. Jiang Chun knew that the fisherman was not simple, but he never thought that the fisherman was the protector of the six realms. Damn it. However, Jiang Chun had already acted tough. If he backed down and admitted defeat, wouldn't he lose face? Although no one could recognize him now, he could not lose in terms of momentum. "Old man, you're the protector of the six realms? Then, I'll give you a chance today. Kill this person and prove your title as the protector of the six realms." Jiang Chun said seriously, "If you can't do it, then I'll naturally do it. However, your title as the protector of the six realms is too fake. You call me old man? F*CKU. I'm going to explode." The fisherman was furious. He had lived for many eras and witnessed the rise of many powerhouses and the fall of emperors. But since ancient times, no one dared to speak to him like this. "Gentlemen, why don't the two of you settle this first?" The Buddhist emperor used his Buddhist voice and said with dignity, "I won't interfere. Who are you to interrupt?" Jiang Chun scolded angrily. "Old Baldy, get out of my way." The fisherman's face was gloomy. He waved his premonition. It was like an afterimage of heaven and earth. It cut across the void and hit the Buddhist emperor directly. Boom! With a loud explosion, the Buddhist light on the Buddhist emperor's body dissipated. Even the nine-colored lotus under his feet cracked. At this moment, the Buddhist emperor's face changed drastically. However, before he could react, Jiang Chun had already taken a step forward. His fists were like gold as he punched out. Boom! Boom! After two loud explosions, everyone saw the Buddhist halo on the back of the Buddhist emperor's head break. Even the Buddhist sect's most powerful technique, the Zhang Six golden body, was shattered. He was covered in blood and staggered. After looking at Jiang Chun and the fisherman in horror, he turned around and ran. "This big fish, I've caught it!" the fisherman shouted. The fishing rod in his hand shook, and the fishing line burst out like silk. Then, a large net appeared. It seemed to be able to wrap up everything and took the Buddhist emperor in. "Ever since I became an emperor, who dared to treat me like this? The two of you, don't go overboard!" The Buddhist emperor roared. His hands formed a Buddhist chant, and a golden palm suddenly appeared. A swastika mark appeared on his palm. It shattered the void and the large net. "What Buddhist emperor? In front of me, you're all made of paper." Jiang Chun had already gotten into the act of acting tough. It was as if he was the one fighting. With a loud roar, Jiang Chun stretched out his hands and pierced them into the void. Then, with a sudden pull, he tore the golden palm apart. Even the swastika mark was torn into powder. Just after this, Jiang Chun took a step forward and used the heavenly law's embodiment of earth. His giant foot stepped on the Buddhist emperor's head. "You've gone too far," the Buddhist emperor roared. However, he was cursing in his heart. "Who said that the six realms are weak? How dare you deceive the honest people of Buddhism?" Bang! At this moment, a muffled sound was heard. The Buddhist emperor's head shook. He was almost blown apart by Jiang Chun's kick. Fortunately, his physical body was extremely strong and his cultivation was high. He managed to survive. Then, he retreated a long distance and quickly formed a Buddhist seal. The Zhang Six golden body was reconstructed and the Buddhist halo appeared behind him. "Amitabha, benefactors, why are you doing this?" the Buddhist emperor asked. "Why? Do I need a reason to kill you?" Jiang Chun said angrily. "The greater world wants to destroy the six realms. We are mortal enemies." Chapter 10:29. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Chun and the fisherman attacked again. However, this time, the Buddhist emperor was clearly prepared. A lotus bloomed, and in an instant, he retreated thousands of miles away. Then he stood there quietly, not saying a word, and did not continue to come over. Now, you should tell me what you meant by those words just now, right? At this moment, the fisherman's face was very ugly as he stared at Jiang Chun. His eyes flickered, and the runes of the great Tao appeared. He wanted to see Jiang Chen's essence, and see Jiang Chen's appearance clearly. Is there really an emperor in the 6 realms that I don't know? After a few breaths, the fisherman was stunned. With his cultivation, he could not see Jiang Chen's appearance clearly. This made him very puzzled. Which emperor was this? His cultivation was so high. As the guardian of the 6 realms, why didn't you do anything when someone from the upper-class world came? Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. Since he had already acted tough to this extent, he might as well continue acting tough. Moreover, Jiang Chen liked this feeling of acting tough and being invincible. Wait, F***CK? However, before the fisherman could speak, the power in Jiang Chen's body began to decline. Obviously, when the emperor of the upper-class world left the 6 realms, this power would disappear. Fortunately, this power seemed to have a mind of its own. Before it disappeared, it brought Jiang Chun back to the back mountain of the 9 Skies court. Phew, that scared me to death. Jiang Chun heaved a sigh of relief. He was almost exposed. However, in the next moment, the fisherman appeared in front of him. It was obvious that the angler finally saw Jiang Chen's face clearly when his power was weakening. He even caught a glimpse of Jiang Chen's energy and where he was. He chased after him. Aren't you too shameless? At this moment, the fisherman's face was very ugly. He stared at Jiang Chun and said, Do I have a grudge against you? How dare you speak ill of me in front of everyone? Well, acting tough felt good for a while, and I didn't know how to stop myself, Jiang Chun said weakly. Without the support of that power, he felt guilty. Fortunately, the dangling fisher did not argue with Jiang Chun. Instead, his eyes fell on the sky-burying coffin. Good heavens! Her soul escaped, but her physical body is still there. The power in her body contains her will, and it's still protecting the 6 realms. The fisherman exclaimed, Brat, were you the one who released Huang Tian? It was an accident, Jiang Chen explained. I thought that this bone coffin was related to me. I didn't think that Huang Tian was buried inside. However, I feel like releasing Huang Tian wasn't wrong. At least her will is still there, protecting the 6 realms, Jiang Chen said. Hearing this, the fisherman frowned, as if thinking of something. A few breaths later, he shook his head and said, It's not certain whether it's a blessing or a curse. Senior, why did you kill the 3 heavens in the first place? Jiang Chen asked. The heavens are like a cover, sealing the path of the world. If we don't destroy the heavens and lift the cover, the path of the world will be cut off. The fisherman sighed. It's hard to say whether it was right or wrong to kill the 3 heavens. Some people think it was wrong, but others think it was right. It all depends on one's own view and understanding of the world. Jiang Chen nodded, although he didn't fully understand what she meant. Then he asked, Senior, why didn't you take action before? As the guardian of the 6 realms, shouldn't you protect the 6 realms? Do I need to take action against these little bastards? The fisherman said angrily. Don't think of the 6 realms as simple as you think. When the 5 realms were destroyed, did the experts of the 5 realms all die? If they didn't die, where do you think they are now? The God realm is the last root of the 6 realms. Will they watch the 6 realms be destroyed? Just wait. Sooner or later, those old things will jump out. After saying that, the fisherman pointed at Jiang Chun and said angrily, Don't talk nonsense. Be careful, or I won't care about our old friendship and suppress you on the spot. Okay, I'll be careful when I show off next time, Jiang Chun said weakly. In the end, the fisherman left and promised Jiang Chun that he wouldn't tell anyone about this. At the same time, the group of creatures in the netherworld also settled down and didn't make a fuss about destroying the world of the living. This was because although there were emperors in the netherworld, they weren't very powerful. At least, they couldn't be compared to Jiang Chen. To be more precise, they couldn't compete with Huang Tian's strength. They were worried that if they took action now, they might be suppressed and destroyed. Therefore, they were waiting for the real experts of the netherworld to descend. At the same time, a group of people came from the outer realm. Each of them had a powerful aura, like the sun and the moon. They stood in the outer realm and stared at the six realms. Obviously, they also knew that there were guardians in the six realms, and there was also a mysterious top emperor. They didn't dare to act rashly, as if they were also waiting for the top emperor to descend. Just like that, the three forces didn't make a move for a while. Just like that, the six realms seemed to have calmed down. This kind of peace was unexpected, but for the people of the world, this kind of peace was rare. Perhaps this was the last period of peace after the arrival of the Golden Age. Time slowly passed, and the three forces didn't make any moves. During this period, Jiang Chen stayed in the back mountain of the Nine Skies Imperial Court and cultivated quietly. Days passed by, and a month later, on this day, Jiang Chen's cultivation broke through from the heavenly god realm to the mysterious god realm. Moreover, his spirit body had shed a lot, and his spine seemed to have transformed into a real dragon. When he raised his hands and moved his feet, there seemed to be a dragon's roar coming from behind him. His ribs had also changed. Each of them was sparkling and translucent like crystals. Previously, the roses on the ribs had fused into a single flower. But now, the ribs were giving birth to fresh flowers. This time, it wasn't a rose, but a thorn flower. The flowers bloom and wilt differently, Jiang Chen whispered. He didn't know what the roses and thorn flowers were used for. He also wanted to ask Hong Yi, but now that the Cleaver sect had sealed the mountain, it was impossible to find Hong Yi. Moreover, Red Coat might not know about the rose flower and the thorn flower. Strange, where's Old Nine? All of a sudden, Jiang Chen realized something. Old Nine had disappeared during this period of time. Now that he thought about it, Old Nine didn't seem to have returned after going to the Pingtian clan. Could it be that there was an accident? Or could it be that there was an accident in the Nine Heavens? When he thought of this, Jiang Chen's expression became serious. He directly stood up, planning to go to the Pingtian clan to take a look. However, at this moment, the coffin lid was opened again. Ah, big sister. You want it again? Jiang Chen's expression was strange. Just as he finished speaking, that force took control of his body. Then, like a Kuan Peng, he soared into the sky and arrived in outer space. At the same time, the six emperors in outer space stood side by side. Each of them had extremely powerful auras, clearly not ordinary emperors. Chapter 1030. It was not easy for the divine world of Jiuxiao to be peaceful for a short period of time, but it was broken today. In the outer region, 6 emperors from the Great Thousand Worlds stood side by side, and the Buddha Emperor was among them. These 6 people were like kings, looking down at the divine world of Jiuxiao. Each of them looked calm, and their eyes were cold, as if there was no trace of emotion. Perhaps, in their eyes, the divine world of Jiuxiao was a burial ground, a dirty place, and the creatures here were like ants and maggots, unworthy of their eyes. However, when Jiang Chen appeared, the 6 people's expressions changed. Especially the Buddha Emperor. A trace of fear flashed in the depths of his eyes, and even the Buddha's light on his body could not help but jump. Do you insist on coming here to die? At this moment, Jiang Chen stood in the outer region, facing the 6 people alone, looking very calm. Of course, others could not see his appearance clearly, let alone his expression. And these 6 emperors from the Great Thousand World, at this moment, did not dare to move at all. They knew very well how powerful Jiang Chen was, and they knew that until now, they could not find out the details of Jiang Chen's background and the truth. They were very afraid and did not want to rashly start a war. However, several holy lands in the Great Thousand World had already ordered them to speed up their progress. In desperation, the 6 emperors could only come together. Fellow Taoist, with your cultivation, Why are you so obsessed with this? If you enter the great thousand world, your achievements will be limitless. Why you have to stay here? This is a burial ground, and it is extremely dirty. What is there to be reluctant to leave and protect here? The six emperors spoke one after another, and some even promised that as long as Jiang Chen no longer protected the divine world of Jiuxiao, he could enter the great thousand world, become a saint, and become an ancestor, and become a superior person. In this regard, Jiang Chen chuckled a few times and said, I was born here. This place is a burial ground in your eyes, and it is dirty. But in my eyes, this is my home, and it is sacred and inviolable. Fellow Taoist, why are you so stubborn? This burial ground will collapse sooner or later. Even if we don't do anything, it will collapse by itself. The Buddha arch sighed and said, the thing buried here cannot be underestimated. Even I only know a little about its background. The reason we came to the burial ground is to eliminate him once and for all. Fellow Taoist, if you're willing to give in, just tell me what you want. The great wide world has everything. As long as you want it, the great wide world can give it to you. The six great sovereigns tried to persuade him again, but they were still wary of Jiang Chen and did not dare to make him move directly. Jiang Chen was getting better and better at acting tough. However, before he could finish his sentence, the energy in his body began to surge. Boom! In the next moment, under everyone's shocked gazes, Jiang Chen charged out. The ecliptic qi around him roared like a dragon. His fists and palms struck out like a ferocious tiger descending the mountain. They tore through the void and arrived right in front of the Buddha arch. Why is it this old monk again? The Buddha arch let out a strange cry. He had been beaten up by Jiang Chen before. He did not expect that even with 6 people here, Jiang Chen would still target him. Caught off guard, the Buddha arch was sent flying by Jiang Chen's palm strike. The Buddhist light on his body dissipated, and even the Buddhist halo on his head almost shattered. However, his physical body was extremely strong. The power of the Zhang 6 golden body erupted. He formed a Buddhist chant with his hands, and a golden palm strike struck out. At the same time, the other 5 people also attacked. The outer realm seemed to have turned into a chaotic zone. In the eyes of the world, it was so gorgeous, as if a rare firework was being set off. However, more than 10 breaths later, under a series of explosions, the world saw Jiang Chen being sent flying. Blood splattered along the way, and the ecliptic qi on his body flickered. He's injured. There are so many cultivators in the Yang world. Is he the only great sovereign who dares to fight against the great wide world? Sovereign, please come out of the mountain. Sovereign, please come out of the mountain. At this moment, from all over the Yang world, heaven-shaking shouts sounded. They were asking for the Yang world's great sovereign to help. Fellow cultivator, let me help you. Right at this moment, from the east of the Yang world, a purple aura arrived. It was like the legendary purple aura from the east, and it also carried a terrifying, domineering aura. That's the Dongfang Imperial Clan's clan leader, an old tyrant. Many people cried out in alarm. This person had appeared a long time ago. However, in the long years, this person gradually disappeared. Until now, not many people knew of his existence. However, those who knew of him knew how powerful this person was. The Dongfang Imperial Clan was a clan of tyrants, and this person was the great sovereign among the tyrants. Wherever his domineering aura passed, it was like the purple aura from the east, piercing through the sky and suppressing an area. The matters of the 6 realms are not for your great wide world to interfere. A few breaths later, at the intersection of yin and yang, 3 great sovereigns roared. They stepped on the void and burst forth with yin energy. It was like the strongest yin energy in the great Tao. The 3 of them worked together and directly rushed out. Black mist surged on their bodies, and they were extremely powerful. Since we've started fighting, there's no way out. Kill. Today, cleanse the burial ground. Return this world to its former glory. The six great sovereigns from the great wide world roared. At this moment, they were truly furious. In an instant, a battle erupted in the outer realms again. Within the gorgeous light, great sovereign blood unceasingly dripped down. A drop of great sovereign blood fell like a brilliant sun. It crossed the starry sky and illuminated the 10,000 realms. Even at the end of the endless starry sky, at the place belonging to the great wide world, the living beings there could see the burning great sovereign blood in the six realms. I've been invincible since ancient times. I'm still invincible in this era. How dare a mere great wide world offend my six realms? Jiangchen shouted at the top of his voice. In any case, he didn't have to do anything. He just had to act cool. As the saying goes, if I'm invincible, you can do whatever you want. However, what made Jiangchen feel helpless was that although Huang Tian's strength was indeed terrifying, his opponents were also not ordinary people. Furthermore, they had the advantage in terms of numbers. One had to know that in a battle between great sovereigns, even one more person would affect the situation of the battle. After more than 10 breaths, Jiang Chun was still roaring, but his body could not hold on any longer. He was targeted by 3 great sovereigns. His physical body was cracked, and even the top of his head was almost torn apart. However, the 3 of them also paid a great price for this. One of them had his physical body torn apart by Jiang Chun. His soul was almost shattered by Jiang Chen's palm. Another one had his limbs cut off. At this moment, he was hiding at the side and rebuilding his physical body. The last one was even more miserable. His head was shattered by Jiang Chen's punch. His soul was dim, and he almost died on the spot. However, as great sovereigns, their recovery ability was astonishing. They absorbed the power of the Great Path and directly healed their injuries. In just a few breaths, their injuries were healed. In the eternal universe, only I will not fall. Suddenly, an extremely arrogant voice came from below. Following it, a stalwart man with wisps of the firmament aura flew into the distance like a primordial blue dragon. F***CK? Jiangchen suddenly cursed. Especially when he saw the man's appearance, his face turned green. Chapter 1031. Jiang Chun was dumbfounded, but he instantly figured out the identity of this person. This was because this newly arrived emperor looked exactly like Jiang Chun, and the aura he exuded was the same as the aura he had encountered on Tiger Head Mountain. Needless to say, this emperor's identity was Jiang Chen's other life, Tian Song. However, Jiang Chun was very confused. What happened to Tian Song in his previous life? Did he become an emperor? Moreover, his original body was still here. What was up with this physical body of his? Was he psychic? But even if he was psychic, wasn't his cultivation level too high? What's going on? Wasn't Tian Song's physical body in Mu Yuda's hands? Jiang Chun was confused. Back then, many things had been squeezed together, and Jiang Chun had forgotten to ask Mu Yuda about Tian Song. Now Mu Yuda was gone, but Tian Song's physical body had appeared. Moreover, it was an emperor. What the F***CK? Are you sure? I, the degeneration, am here. Reverse water dissipation. At this moment, Tian Song's physical body stood upright in outer space. At first glance, he really did have the demeanor of an emperor. But why didn't these words sound like that? Especially the words degeneration. What was going on? What did that mean? At this moment, Jiang Chun suddenly had a bad feeling. Degeneration? Fellow cultivator, which family are you from? At this moment, the emperors around them were a little confused. They stared blankly at Tian Song. They didn't know him at all. Some of them even searched through the past and present eras, but they couldn't remember the emperor of the degeneration. There are great virtues in this world, and I am the ancestor of the degeneration. Tian Song raised his eyebrows and pointed at the emperors of the great thousand world. He said arrogantly, "Retreat, otherwise die." The faces of the 6 emperors from the great thousand world darkened when they heard this. What the hell are you doing? Although you're the emperor, the aura you're emitting is the weakest among everyone present, all right? You haven't figured out the situation yet? Jiang Chun was also dumbfounded for a long time. But before he could ask a few questions, the power in his body began to surge again. Boom! In the next moment, this place seemed to have exploded as the group of emperors attacked again. An earth-shattering explosion resounded throughout the entire ninth heaven divine world. Even the great 1,000 worlds far away from here could hear the fluctuations of the battle here. And this battle lasted for half a day. Half a day later, both sides retreated. No one died in battle, but both sides suffered heavy injuries. The only one who was unscathed was Jiang Chun. During this half a day, Jiang Chun did not do anything. He allowed the energy in his body to rampage. He only cared about acting tough. It was hard to believe that the power in Jiang Chun's body was too terrifying. After half a day, Jiang Chun had crippled 4 monarchs. Even the Buddha Thearcha's corporeal body had been shattered by Jiang Chun twice. Jiang Chun was very puzzled. How terrifying was Huang Tian's power? At this moment, the group of people were divided into 3 sides. The 6 emperors of the great 1,000 worlds stood on one side. Jiang Chun, Tian Song, and the emperor of the Dongfang imperial clan stood together. The 3 emperors from the underworld stood on the other side. The 3 sides formed a triangle and faced each other. For a moment, no one made a move. After more than 10 breaths, the Buddha Arch opened his mouth and said, "Why don't we sit down and talk? Only the weak will negotiate. The true experts will directly make a move," Jiang Chun said in a serious voice. He was very confident. However, just as he finished speaking, he felt that the power in his body seemed to have weakened a little. This time, Jiang Chun's confidence was not enough. He coughed a few times and said, "Since you want to talk, then let's talk. I am not an unreasonable person." "Talk about what? Why would the Wu generation be afraid of you? Let's fight again." Tian Song let out a long roar. His aura was boundless. However, half of his body had been shattered. Right now, his body was still being reconstructed. Jiang Chun saw this and felt pain in his heart. That was his body. "What kind of talk? Your great 1,000 world wants to destroy our 6 realms, and now you want to talk with us? How?" The emperor of the Dongfang imperial clan said coldly. "Could it be that you want us to surrender?" Once those words were said, the expressions of the 6 emperors of the great 1,000 world turned ugly. To be honest, with the battle today having reached this point, they were powerless to do anything. They did not expect that there would be so many emperors in the 6 realms. Not only were they fierce, they were also fearless. "The territory of the great 1,000 world is vast and boundless," the Buddha Arch said. "The distance between the great 1,000 world and the 6 realms is endless. Even if the emperors come here, it will take a very long time. However, when the time is right, the emperors of the great 1,000 world will come here. At that time, it will not be just the 6 of us. It might be 16, or it might be 60. The Buddha Arch said, "At that time, the 6 realms will still be destroyed. Then, there's nothing to talk about?" The emperor of the Dongfang imperial clan said coldly, "Since there's nothing to talk about, let's fight. People of the Wu generation do not fear a battle," Tian Song said sternly. Suddenly, he patted Jiang Chun's shoulder and said jokingly, "Fellow Taoist, you look quite familiar." Jiang Chun was stunned. He saw the strange light in Tian Song's eyes. He felt that he had seen it somewhere before. It was very familiar. After a few breaths of time, Jiang Chun was stunned. He stared at Tian Song's eyes and cried out in surprise, "Mu Yud? Oh, fellow Taoist knows me?" Tian Song was surprised. He felt weak in his heart. He did not know that the person in front of him, who was enveloped by the aura of the ecliptic path, was Jiang Chun. However, Jiang Chun knew the identity of the person in front of him. Motherf * Kerr, Tian Song's body was not sentient. Instead, it was controlled by Mu Yud using some secret technique. As for where the cultivation of this body came from, Jiang Chun could not figure it out. However, Jiang Chun was now certain that the person standing in front of him was Mu Yud. Furthermore, this guy kept calling himself the Wu generation. This made Jiang Chen even more certain that this person was definitely Mu Yud. Everyone, we are all emperors. If we really have to fight to the death, how can the six realms withstand our attacks? Even the shockwaves from our battle will destroy the six realms. The Buddha the Arch said, why don't we let the later generations do it? We can just watch from the side and act as witnesses. What do you think? Oh, what do you mean? Jiang Chun did not want to bother with Mu Yud for now. He looked at the Buddha the Arch and asked, let's hear it. It's very simple. Cultivators of the God the Arch level cannot fight. Cultivators below the God the Arch level can fight. When the time comes, life and death will be determined. What do you all think? The Buddha the Arch suggested. What's the point of that? The Dongfang Imperial Clan's monarch asked. In the end, we still have to fight. I feel like an old baldy like you is spouting nonsense. Chapter 1032. What the Dongfang Imperial Clan's monarch said was correct. Regardless of how they fought earlier, in the end, only the monarchs would be able to resolve this chaos. If that was the case, then what the Buddha Emperor had said was indeed nonsense. However, what he said next caused the crowd to grow silent. They even had no choice but to carefully consider it. Everyone, you should all know about the Great Thousand Realms. Ask yourselves, when the experts of our Great Thousand Realms descend, will the six realms be able to stop them? Asked the Buddha Emperor. Once those words were spoken, the crowd grew silent. They did not know what to say. Although they dared to come out and fight, it did not mean that the six realms would be able to stop the Great Thousand Realms. In reality, everyone knew that the six realms were no match for the Great Thousand Realms. What was the Great Thousand Realms? It was a collective name of several thousand or even several tens of thousands of realms. Every realm had an overlord, but there were several thousand or even several tens of thousands of overlords. In fact, there were even supreme existences that surpassed the overlords. As for the six realms, although they were very deep, they were only so big. At that time, if the two sides were to truly fight, the six realms would definitely be no match for the Great Thousand Realms. Actually, we all understand. It's just that we truly do not wish to lose our lives like this. The Dongfang Imperial Clan's monarch sighed. He felt powerless. Right now, we can give you all a chance, said the Buddha Emperor. Buddha is merciful. From now on, the overlord-level cultivators are not allowed to fight. The younger generation will fight. If any of the younger generation of the six realms is able to defeat the geniuses of our Great Thousand Realms, then when the experts of our Great Thousand Realms descend, I can guarantee that your family's bloodline will continue to be passed on, said the Buddha Emperor. Once those words were spoken, the expressions of the crowd immediately became strange. A trace of surprise and joy flashed through their eyes. The reason for that was because they all knew that once the six realms were to be destroyed, nothing would exist anymore. The sects, powers, clans, and even their bloodlines and inheritances that they had painstakingly established would all be destroyed. How many eras, how many days and nights of bitter cultivation had they gone through? How many dead ends had they walked? How many enemies had they killed to create their glory? Who would be willing to lose that? Without mentioning their own inheritances, who would be cold and heartless? They all had their own descendants. Their bloodlines were still continuing to be passed on. Even if the six realms were to be destroyed, they would still want to protect their descendants. That was love. Now, the Buddha Thearka's words had brought hope to the six realms. In a battle between peers, only the winner could live. Of course, we martial emperors are destined to fight, but the battlefield will not be here. The Buddha the Arch said, what do you think? If we fight here, the entire six realms will collapse. At that time, your descendants and inheritances will all be implicated. They will be reduced to ashes in the aftermath of our battle and vanish into thin air. When everyone heard this, they secretly nodded. However, they still felt bitter, helpless, and even more aggrieved. He even felt a sense of shame and humiliation in his heart. They all knew that if they agreed now, it would be equivalent to compromising with the great wide world. How can we believe your words? The Dongfang imperial clan's overlords said coldly. After all the overlords of the great thousand realms have arrived, we do not even have the right to speak. If you go back on your words, what can we do? In my opinion, we should kill as many as we can right now. The underworld overlord said with a deep voice. Old Baldy, we do not believe your words. However, right at this moment, a purple light rushed over from the distance. A man with a crown on his head appeared in a few breaths of time. Following his appearance, the atmosphere became a bit strange. It was even a bit oppressive. The reason for that was because this person was the master of the world's edge, Zi Xiao. We are powerless. However, we should seek a path of survival for our descendants. Zi Xiao sighed. Let's do as you say. Zi Xiao, what if they go back on their words? The Dongfang imperial clan's overlord said with a deep voice. Although you are the master of the world's edge, this matter concerns the entire 6 realms. You alone cannot represent the entire 6 realms. Hearing that, Zi Xiao smiled bitterly. He turned around to look at the Dongfang imperial clan's overlord and asked, in that case, do you have a better idea? Do you really want the bloodline of the 6 realms to end? Once those words were said, the Dongfang imperial clan's overlord's expression changed. Then, he grew silent. Actually, in the end, we from the great thousand realms came to the 6 realms to search for one thing, the Buddha Emperor said. However, that thing is the foundation of your 6 realms. It is impossible for your 6 realms to hand it over. That is why such a battle occurred. If the 6 realms were willing to hand it over, there would be no need for us to fight. Once we obtain it, we will leave. However, the Buddha Emperor had also said that what they wanted was the foundation of the 6 realms. If that thing was gone, the 6 realms would also be gone. This was equivalent to the destruction of the 6 realms. That thing, you all must obtain it with your own abilities. Zi Xiao said with a deep voice. Although we have compromised, we will not surrender. As people of the 6 realms, even if we die, we must protect that thing. Thus, even though we know that there will be a battle to the death, it is best to do as I say, the Buddha Emperor said with a smile. From today onwards, we will do as you say, Zi Xiao sighed. He looked to Jiang Chun and the others. As overlords, do you all have any objections? Jiang Chun had been thinking about it. According to his thoughts, he naturally could not agree. However, he also understood that the great thousand world was too powerful. When the emperors descended, the 6 realms would not be able to stop them. Now, the only thing he could do was to protect the people around him. If one person wins, they can live. What if they win many times? Can they let the designated person live? Jiang Chen asked. Of course, one victory is one life, the Buddha Emperor said. If you can win 100 battles, then you can save 100 people. What if someone kills all the geniuses from the great thousand world? Jiang Chen asked. How many people are killed counts? The great thousand world lacks everything except geniuses. Another overlord raised his eyebrows and said, what's more, the geniuses of the 6 realms are not on the same level in the eyes of the geniuses of the great thousand world. Is that so? Then we can try, Jiang Chen said softly. Then he nodded and said, I agree too. What does it have to do with the netherworld? If the great thousand world is so powerful, they can attack the netherworld. We have nothing to fear. The Yang realm has indeed declined. They actually compromised. The 3 overlords from the netherworld mocked. Then, the 3 of them directly left. Then, the overlords of Zi Xiao and Dongfang imperial clan also left. As for the 6 overlords from the great thousand world, they also temporarily withdrew from the 6 realms and came to the outer realms. At this moment, only Jiang Chun was still standing there. His body was out of control. The power in his body was still rioting, as if he was about to attack. Chapter 1033. Everyone had come to an agreement to leave, but Jiang Chun could not. The energy in his body was extremely violent, and he was controlling his body to charge at the Buddha Arch and the others. Hey, Big sister. I said okay. We've already agreed. Jiang Chun felt bitter. His body was out of his control. Most importantly, his body had rushed out uncontrollably. And when he turned his head to look, good heavens, Tian Song was following him. Get the F***CK out of here. Jiang Chun was furious. Mu Yud, that old B***starred, had used some unknown method to control Tian Song's body to fight. It would be fine if he won, but what if he lost? Tian Song's body would be gone. People with the surname Wuda are brave and good at fighting, and they are never afraid to fight. Fellow cultivator, let me help you, Tian Song said righteously. Little did he know that the person standing in front of him was Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun was so angry that he almost exploded. He was cursing Mu Yud's ancestors in his heart. Fellow cultivator, what are you? At the same time, the Buddha Arch looked at Jiang Chun with a strange expression and said hurriedly, We've already discussed this, you. Don't tell me you still want to fight? Bang! Just as he finished speaking, Jiang Chun suddenly sped up and punched the Buddha the Arch in the face. This punch extinguished the Buddha halo above the Buddha Thearcha's head. His entire face was swollen, and his head was almost cracked. Why is it me again? The Buddha the Arch was furious. His entire body shone with golden light, and he used his Zhang 6 golden body to retreat. At the same time, the other 5 emperors were also shocked. Why did the emperors of the 6 realms not keep their promises? One had to know that an emperor's words were equivalent to a decree, a holy word. Even if he wanted to go back on his word, he shouldn't be so obvious. Fellow cultivator, you've gone too far. Stop. Do you really want to see the people of the 6 realms die? The other emperors shouted angrily, but they saw Jiang Chun's fist coming towards them. This time, the emperors could not take it anymore. Boom! In the blink of an eye, another great battle broke out. And this time, Jiang Chun and Tian Song were fighting against the 6 great emperors of the vast 1,000 domains. This king doesn't believe your words. Can the 6 of you represent the great 1,000 world? Jiang Chun rebuked angrily, but he was helpless. He couldn't control himself. People of the Wuda generation have never feared a battle. Although Tian Song's voice was very loud, he had been following Jiang Chun from the beginning to the end, occasionally making a move in the dark. Clearly, Muyuda was also afraid that he would damage Tian Song's body. I have already made myself very clear. The greater Kiliakasm will not go back on our word. The Buddha Thearcha's face darkened. He had been hit by Jiang Chun the most. His divine ring had even cracked a few times. He was very depressed. Why was Jiang Chun chasing after him and hitting him? Could it be because he was a monk? Baldy? Fellow cultivator, you are really fierce. May I ask which sect are you from? Tian Song hid behind Jiang Chun, secretly making a move while trying to get closer to Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun was about to explode. He wanted to tell Tian Song that he was Jiang Chun. However, there were so many people here, and there were so many people watching. Jiang Chun did not dare to reveal his identity. Fellow cultivator, there is no need to continue fighting like this. The words of the emperors are sacred, not to mention such a big promise. If they go back on their word, their Dao fruits will also be affected. Tian Song said, I think let's forget it. Let's retreat. Jiang Chun was very happy when he heard this. Good fellow, you are finally leaving? Hurry up and protect my body. However, after saying this, Tian Song suddenly made a move and punched the Buddha the Arch in the face. Even if I am a Buddhist, I will still start a massacre today. This time, the Buddha the Arch was completely enraged. What are you doing? You want me to beat you up alone? Do you think I am easy to bully? At this moment, the Buddha Thearcha's body emitted an infinite amount of Buddhist light. His hands formed a Buddhist seal, and Buddhist mantras appeared around him. Then he struck out with his palm. The palm print was like a golden river, rolling in the void. It was as if it had crossed the river of time. Then the river fell, and Jiang Chun and Tian Song were both sucked in. Old Baldy, you are courting death. Jiang Chun was furious. He was fine, but with Huang Tian's power, he was invincible. However, he saw a crack on Tian Song's body. What the F***? How could he tolerate this? However, it seemed that Huang Tian had used up all his power, and Jiang Chun felt weak. Then, this force brought Jiang Chun into the void. In a few seconds, it concealed its aura and returned to the back mountain of the Nine Skies court. Just like that, Jiang Chun watched as Tian Song's body was swept away by the Golden River and disappeared. My body! Jiang Chun stood at the back mountain, and his face darkened. Fortunately, he saw that Tian Song had escaped. After cursing a few times, he disappeared into the void as well. Mu Yud, where are you? I'm going to kill you. Jiang Chun was furious. He immediately ordered the people of the Nine Skies court to search for Mu Yud's whereabouts. Fellow cultivator, if you dare to attack again, don't blame me for being merciless. When the six realms are in a terrible situation, don't blame us. The Buddha the Arch roared. His face was covered in bruises, and he was almost traumatized by the beating. This baldy is really pitiful, Jiang Chun mumbled. He did not know why Huang Tian's power was directed at the Buddha the Arch. Could it be that Huang Tian had a grudge against the Buddhists? Or was it that the Buddha Thearch's halo was too bright? Everything is settled. Now it's time to think for myself and the people around me. After a few breaths, Jiang Chun calmed down and frowned. In fact, everyone knew that if nothing unexpected happened, the destruction of the six realms was inevitable. After all, the greater world was too powerful. One victory, one life. Jiang Chun whispered, looks like I have to win a few more battles. With that, Jiang Chun sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. He knew very well that without enough strength, it would be difficult to fight against the geniuses of the greater world. With his current cultivation level, it would be difficult for him to establish a foothold. 3 days later, in the outer realm, a path appeared out of thin air. Then, living beings walked out of the path and entered the six realms. These people were all from the greater world. Their cultivation levels were below the emperor level. Moreover, they were all outstanding and high-spirited. At first glance, one could tell that they were the cream of the crop. In just half a day, hundreds of thousands of living beings from the greater world had entered the Nine Skies divine realm and were scattered everywhere. Everyone, the group of emperors from the great thousand world, will descend in a month's time. This 1 month's time is the time for you to fight for a chance to survive. The Buddha Emperor said from outside the domain, whether or not you can survive will depend on your own strength. Chapter 1034. The creatures of the upper-class world continued to enter the nine heavens divine realm and scatter everywhere. Their purpose here was not only to gain experience, but also to seize the heavenly treasures in the nine heavens divine realm. In their eyes, the nine heavens divine realm was just a place to gain experience. As for the cultivators of the nine heavens divine realm, to them, they were just whetstones. And within a day after the creatures of the upper-class world entered the nine heavens divine realm in large numbers, all the top sects and families sent out experts to challenge these geniuses from the upper-class world. After all, as long as they defeated them, they could live. For many people, in order to protect their lives, in order to survive, the only way now was to challenge those creatures from the upper-class world. However, the reality was quite cruel. In just one day, many people had died in the nine heavens divine realm, from the true gods to the master gods. The number of deaths had already exceeded 1,000. The cultivators of the upper-class world are too strong. Their combat strength is formidable. How can we fight like this? We can't win at all. For a moment, many people sighed. They had clearly seen the hope of survival. But in the end, it was still despair. Some people even began to doubt themselves. Could it be that they were really too weak? However, this one-sided situation was broken the next day. On this day, someone saw a beam of light shoot up into the sky from the barren state. From the beam of light, a youth walked out. Then, there was a legend about him in the barren state. Someone said that he saw the youth fight alone against more than a dozen geniuses from the upper-class world. Not only did he win, but he also won completely. There were also people who said that the youth's background was not small, and he seemed to be from the Eternal City. In just one day, more and more rumors about this youth appeared. There were even some top families and sects who sent people to look for this youth, wanting to trap him and obtain some survival spots from him. One had to know that a victory could allow one person to live, and this youth had defeated more than a dozen geniuses from the upper-class world. There were more than a dozen spots in his hands that could survive. Moreover, these 10-plus spots were undoubtedly extremely precious to many people. However, after 3 days, so many people sent out by so many forces could not find this youth. This made many people puzzled. Could it be that this youth had already died in battle? This little guy is not bad. He already has 17 points. In the outer realm, there was a huge and tall stone tablet in front of the Buddha, the Arch, and the others. There were names and portraits on the stone tablet. Below each name and portrait was a string of numbers. As long as the creatures of the ninth heaven divine realm won a match, their names and portraits would appear on the stone tablet, and their scores would be recorded. As long as there was even a fraction of it, when the 6 realms were destroyed in the future, this person would be able to survive. One had to admit that the Buddha, the Arch, and the others were quite trustworthy. They had special divine abilities to establish a stone tablet and keep their promises. At this moment, the Buddha, the Arch, and the others looked at the top of the stone tablet. There was a portrait of a person there. According to their divine senses, this person seemed to have no surname and was only named Chang'e. If this person is willing to join the great thousand world, we can nurture him well, one of the emperors said. But looking at him, I don't think he'll agree. Heh. The creatures of the 6 realms are all stubborn. They know they will die, but they refuse to surrender. Another emperor joked, "Of course, if they're willing to hand over that thing, why do we have to destroy the 6 realms? They can all live. If that thing is taken away by us, we don't have to do anything. The 6 realms will be destroyed." The Buddha, the Arch, sighed. After all, that thing is the foundation of the 6 realms. Without the foundation, the 6 realms will collapse. At the same time, in the neighboring college, on this day, a young man suddenly appeared in the college. After he arrived at the college, he directly found Nien Chang'e's spiritual body. Then, under the shocked gazes of the entire neighboring college, the young man suppressed the body and took it away. "Who is that? Look at him. He looks like that young man from the barren state. I heard that when he fought with the cultivators of the great thousand world, he called himself Chang'e. You're really capable. After becoming spiritual, you ascended to become a god. I was almost killed by you." At this moment, on a mountain 3,000 miles away from the neighboring college, a seemingly honest young man was staring at Nien Chang'e's body in front of him and cursing. Then, without waiting for the body to speak, the young man formed a seal with both hands and directly imprinted it on the young man's body. Then, the two turned into a rain of light and intertwined in the air. Half a day later, the young man appeared again. His aura soared, and a terrifying aura leaked out as he raised his hand. "It's been a long time, Jiuxiao Divine Realm," the young man said softly. His eyes looked into the distance, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly with a trace of unruliness and madness. Then, he opened his hands as if he wanted to embrace the world. He even shouted, "I'm Chang'e, Nien Chang'e." "Oh, is Nien Chang'e here?" At the same time, in the back mountain of the Jiuxiao Imperial Court, Jiangchen also heard about the deeds of the young man from the barren state. When he learned that the other party called himself Chang'e, he guessed the other party's identity. Soon, Jiangchen learned that Nien Chang'e had found his body and should have fused with it. "Go and find out where he is now." Jiangchen sent people to look for Nien Chang'e. He also began to move and left the Jiuxiao Imperial Court. On the same day, in the barren state, another beam of light shot into the sky. This time, many people saw an ethereal woman walk out of the beam of light. She was like a fairy, untainted by the mortal world and untainted by the spring. After walking out of the beam of light, there was a trace of emptiness and confusion in her eyes, and then she disappeared. Some people followed her and soon saw geniuses from the great thousand world meeting her. A battle inevitably broke out between the two sides. In the end, the news spread that the woman was injured, but she did not die. She escaped covered in blood. I say, that woman's appearance. Why does she look so similar to the Yuetian from 3,000 years ago? Now that you mention it, it's true. At this moment, Jiang Chun came to the vicinity of the adjacent academy and was inquiring about Nian Chang's whereabouts. At the same time, he also learned about the woman. At this moment, Jiang Chen's expression froze. After calculating the time, he thought to himself that it was about time for the Yuetian to ascend. Then, was the woman who appeared in the barren state really the Yuetian? Whether it was or not, at this moment, Jiang Chen was a little anxious. He once again ordered the experts of the Zhouxiao Imperial Court to take action and find the whereabouts of the woman. Something big has happened. The Chang and plain has split open. It seems that an ancient relic has appeared. Suddenly, a piece of news swept through the entire Zhouxiao divine realm. Even the master gods and even the ultimate gods who were in seclusion could not sit still after hearing the news. They all came out of seclusion and headed to the Chang and plain. Chapter 1035. The Chang and plain had existed since ancient times. It was said that there was an ancient relic under the plain that contained amazing treasures. It was said that anyone who obtained the treasures would be able to control the changes in the ninth heaven. Some people speculated that there was something hidden under the Chang and plain that could compete with the emperors. However, for many generations, no one had opened the ancient relic under the Chang and plain. No one had even found it. Some emperors had secretly gone to investigate, but to no avail. Who would have thought that the Chang and plain would split open and the ancient relic would appear? It was like a bolt of lightning. Not only did it alarm the living beings of the ninth heaven, but it also alarmed the living beings of the great thousand world and the netherworld. On this day, all the heroes gathered in the middle of the Chang and plain in front of the ancient relic. A group of living beings who are about to perish still have the time to care about the treasures in the ancient relic. A month later, when the emperors of the great thousand world arrive, it will be the day of the burial ground's destruction. Instead of enjoying the last days of your lives, you come out to fight for the treasures? What a joke! When Jiang Chen arrived, he saw tens of thousands of living beings from the great thousand world. Some of them were standing alone, some were in groups of 3 to 5, and some were in dozens. These people had different cultivation levels. The lowest was a real god, and the highest was a divine venerable. Their eyes and expressions were full of confidence and arrogance. When they looked at the living beings of the ninth heaven, they were full of contempt and disdain. There were many living beings of the ninth heaven around them, but most of them were far away and did not dare to come close. This was because someone had come close and was killed by the living beings of the great thousand world. Moreover, it was killed by someone of the same cultivation level. However, there were exceptions to everything. Not all the living beings of the divine world had retreated far away. A few of them stood outside the ancient relic, standing in the innermost circle. Boy, this is not a place for you to come. The divine world is about to be destroyed, and you still have the mood to come here and fight for the treasures. Suddenly, a contemptuous voice came from the vicinity of the ancient relic. Everyone looked over and saw a white-robed young man holding a folding fan. He had a smile on his face and was holding a small booklet in his hand. Facing the living beings of the great thousand world, he did not panic at all. Furthermore, he seemed to be seriously flipping through the booklet, as if he was searching for something. It wasn't until a few breaths later that the youth's eyes lit up. After looking at the contents of the booklet, his expression became serious and his eyes shined brightly. He glanced around and shouted, "When heroes get along, they are all ordinary people, and I am the crane in the flock, standing at the top looking down." What does that mean? Many people were stunned. This young man had been reading the booklet for half a day just to find this sentence. I can understand the gist of it. He seemed to be acting tough. They called us ordinary people. Oh, does this kid not want to live anymore? A few breaths later, someone with literary talent translated. For a moment, the living beings of the great thousand world were enraged. Ever since they entered the divine realm, no one could stop them. Their battle records were glorious. Even the cultivators of the older generation in the divine realm could not withstand a single blow from them. In their eyes, the divine realm was nothing more than that. As time passed, this gave rise to arrogance in their hearts and made them even more arrogant. But now, there was actually a seemingly honest young man who dared to humiliate them in front of so many people. How? How could they tolerate this? Seeing that you're just a chief god, we won't bother to bully you. Get lost. An upper-ranked chief god rebuked angrily. The divine realm is almost gone. Hurry up and find a good place to choose your grave from now on. Who said I'm a chief god? The young man was stunned, seemingly very puzzled. He pointed at himself and asked, Do I look like a chief god like this? Do you think we're blind? If you're not a chief god, then what are you? Someone rebuked angrily. However, the young man chuckled when he heard that and did not say anything else. Boom! Suddenly, an explosion came from the periphery of the ancient relic. This explosion attracted everyone's attention at once. Everyone turned around and saw a tall and straight young man with a jade-like face walking towards the inner area of the ancient ruins. Dressed in white, he was handsome and elegant, and his handsome features made one think of a saying, Strangers are like jade. Young master is unparalleled in the world. Tian Chun, Jiang Chun. At this moment, exclamations came from all around, and everyone's eyes fell on the handsome young man. This person was none other than Jiang Chun. He had wanted to enter the inner area just now, but he was stopped by a heavenly god from the greater thousand world. The result, of course, went without saying. Jiang Chun threw a punch and sent the other party flying right away. Once upon a time, he was a supreme god. Someone heaved a long sigh. It's just a shame that in this prosperous age, what's a supreme god worth? Sighed. If he hadn't died back then, perhaps he'd already be a godly venerable now. Accompanied by the noise around, Jiang Chun walked step by step to the inner area with a smile on his face. Then, he came in front of the young man holding a folding fan and asked with a smile, When did you come? A few days ago. The young man smiled. His expression was a little dull, and he always gave people the feeling of an honest person. However, Jiang Chun knew very well that the guy in front of him was a black-bellied person. This person was none other than Yin Chang'e, who had just entered the divine realm from Eternal City. Long time no see. Long time no see. At this moment, Jiang Chun and Yin Chang'e hugged. Something big happened in the divine realm. I'll tell you in detail later. Jiang Chun said, I know. Yin Chang'e smiled and said, It's not a big deal just because I'm back. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Yin Chang'e's body. The aura rushed to the sky and tore the clouds apart as if a king was born. At this moment, the person who had previously said that Yin Chang'e was a master god was even more shocked. This was because the aura that Yin Chang'e displayed at this moment had reached the level of a high-level godly venerable. Oh, this is your peak state? Jiang Chun was stunned. He did not expect Yin Chang'e to be so powerful in his peak state. Not at all. Yin Chang'e shook his head and pointed to the stone door not far away. He said, Behind that stone door is the Chang'an ruins, and my peak state is there. Chang'an ruins? Chang'an Chang'e? Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes and then secretly asked, Don't tell me that this Chang'an ruins was set up by you? Whether the world is in chaos or not, I, Chang'an, have the final say. As for how it's going to be, open the ruins and the world will be in chaos. Yin Chang'e chuckled and looked at the creatures from the great wide world around him. He whispered, Friends from afar, I should give some greeting gifts. Chapter 1036. Obviously, Chang'e was the one who opened the Chang in ruins. After returning to the divine realm, he first merged with his body, then came to the Chang and plains to open the ruins. Furthermore, he must have a motive for causing such a huge commotion this time. With so many people, even if the ruins are yours, it will be very difficult for you to get the things in the ruins, right? Jiang Chen asked. Oh, is it difficult? Nian Chang'e chuckled and teased. It's not difficult for me, but you. Why are you only a Xian god? Ah, Jiang Chen blushed and muttered. You can't judge me with the eyes of ordinary people. What are you two whispering about over there? Are you looking down on the people of the great thousand world? At this moment, a god shouted angrily. Moreover, he took a step forward and pushed his palm forward. The palm print was like a purple mountain, suppressing Jiang Chen. Nian Chang'e was a divine master, so he naturally did not dare to make a move. However, Jiang Chen, a Xian god, was like an ant in his eyes. Do you really think I'm an ant? Jiang Chen's eyes flashed, and two thunderbolts burst out from his eyes. Boom! With an explosion, a thunderbolt shattered the opponent's palm print, followed by another thunderbolt that directly pierced through the god's protective divine power. In the end, the god's chest was pierced, and as he retreated, his entire body exploded. Xian god? At this moment, the surrounding people exclaimed. They could not believe that a Xian god had such combat strength. One had to know that in their eyes, the cultivators of the great thousand world were generally stronger than those of the divine realm. Even in a battle of the same realm, the cultivators of the great thousand world could basically suppress the cultivators of the six realms. Now, this was not the same realm, but a cultivator of the six realms, with the power of a lower realm, shattered the body of a god from the great thousand world. You have some skills, let me try. At this moment, another person rushed over. He had the cultivation of a superior god. Before he even arrived, a gust of wind howled. Within the raging winds, there were icicles and chains that danced in the wind like dragon bones. All right, how dare you underestimate the cultivators of the great thousand world? Brat, you're dead. All around, many people were clapping and cheering. Perhaps in their eyes, Jiang Chen was already a dead man. I'm dead? Ha! Jiang Chen chuckled. With a shake of his body, the emperor's vine extended from his back. The purple gold vines were like giant chains that crossed the void. As they swayed, they directly extinguished the wind. Then, the vines turned into purple gold swords and pierced through the air. Before that person could react, the swords pierced through his body. Furthermore, a vine that was as sharp as a needle actually pierced through that person's forehead in front of so many people, directly killing him. How dare you? Brat, do you want to die? At this moment, angry shouts could be heard from all around. There were even cultivators of the overgod level who locked onto Jiang Chen with their divine thoughts. In response, Jiang Chen shrugged nonchalantly and said, What's wrong? Have you lost your manners? Did the emperors of the extraterritorial realm allow you to mess around like this? Do not fight those two levels above you. At this moment, the Buddha Thearcha's voice came from the extraterritorial realm. This was not only a warning to the cultivators of the great thousand world, but also to the experts of the deity realm. As the Buddha Thearcha's voice fell, the divine thoughts of the overgods that enveloped Jiang Chen instantly disappeared. However, at the same time, a few titled deities walked over. Do not fight those two levels above you. Above the mysterious god was the honorable god, and above the honorable god was the titled deity. If one's cultivation did not exceed the titled deities, it did not count as crossing two levels. Cough, cough. I guess this group of people is dead. Sigh, they came too late, and the Red Lotus Venerable and the others are also dead. They did not know that Jiang Chen had killed a titled deity before. In the distance, some people of the deity realm had strange expressions. They all knew how terrifying Jiang Chen's combat power was. However, they did not say a word. After all, no matter whether they had a grudge against Jiang Chen or not, when facing the creatures of the great thousand world, they and Jiang Chen were on the same side. How could they watch their own people suffer losses? Win a battle, and you'll live. Today, do I have to save a lot of people? Jiang Chun thought to himself, but he did not directly take action. This was because he thought that if he took action now, he could only suppress these few titled deities. After winning, the other titled deities would definitely be afraid and would not fight with him again. And Jiang Chun wanted to have a big harvest again. Then, I am not bragging, but the cultivators of the great thousand world, if their cultivation does not exceed the titled deities, are no match for me. At this moment, Jiang Chen's expression was extremely arrogant. He raised one hand, extended his middle finger, and waved it in front of the creatures of the great thousand world. Damn it, I have never seen such an arrogant person. Don't fight with those who are 2 levels higher. It doesn't mean that we can't gang up on him. For a moment, many bad-tempered cultivators took action. Among them, there were not only titled deities, but also honorable deities and mysterious deities. They all thought that since there were so many of them, even if each of them spat a mouthful of saliva, they could drown Jiang Chen to death. However, the reality was a little cruel. At this moment, more than 30 people rushed over, each with a majestic aura. Some of them were pinching seals, forming a formation, and some even used secret techniques. An ocean fell from the sky, as if to drown this place. In this regard, Jiang Chen looked indifferent and stood proudly on the spot. He only stretched out his right hand gently to the side, and a green lamp appeared. Then, before the attacks from the sky arrived, the green lamp flashed, and a sharp sword ray suddenly burst out. 1,000 transformations heaven cut. With a light shout, the crowd saw a sword ray soaring into the sky, tearing the void and tearing the bodies of more than 30 people apart. Even their souls were annihilated by this sword strike. A cold sword ray destroyed the world. This hiss. At this moment, the surrounding people gasped. One had to know that more than 30 geniuses from the great thousand world. Among them, there was no lack of titled deities and even Earth-level titled deities. These people came together, but they could not block Jiang Chen's sword ray. Wow, you really can't be judged by the eyes of ordinary people, Nian Chang'e exclaimed and said. You are so powerful now. Shut up. The corner of Jiang Chen's mouth twitched, and he said snappily, You are now a supreme god. Can you stop teasing me? I thought this trip to the 6 realms would be quite boring. I didn't expect there to be a genius like you in the 6 realms. It seems that this trip is not in vain. You are worthy of my help. Suddenly, a light but arrogant voice came from afar. Chapter 10:37. When everyone heard this, they looked into the distance and saw a golden-haired young man dressed in brocade slowly walking towards them. He was not very fast, as if he was taking a stroll. However, with every step he took, the road under his feet seemed to be distorted. With every step he took, it was as if he had crossed thousands of mountains and rivers, condensing thousands of miles into one step. The supreme movement technique of the human race, shrinking the ground into an inch. Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes. He did not expect such a movement technique to exist in the great wide world. This is the disciple of the royal family. It is said that this family has an emperor in this era. He is very powerful. It's strange. The emperor of the royal family seems to have come to the 6 realms this time. Why haven't I seen him yet? Not only did the crowd reveal the identity of this young man, but they also thought of the golden-haired emperor who had come to the divine realm before. That emperor called himself a member of the royal family. When Jiang Chen heard this, his expression became strange. He also thought of the golden-haired emperor. That emperor was very powerful. Back then, he fought against the 3 emperors of the underworld alone and was not at a disadvantage. He even suppressed the 3 emperors of the underworld. Such strength could be said to be the best among the emperors. However, the golden-haired emperor was very sad. He encountered Jiang Chen, who was possessed by Huang Tian's power. In the end, he was defeated and died. However, what was puzzling was that the creatures of the great wide world did not know about the death of the golden-haired emperor of the royal family. Could it be that the Buddhist emperor and the others had hidden it? Thinking about it carefully, it was indeed possible. After all, the great wide world had just entered the six realms. Not long after entering the six realms, they had lost an emperor. If this spread back to the great wide world, it would be too demoralizing and even more embarrassing. Of course, there was more than one emperor of the great wide world who had died in the six realms. Moreover, they were all killed by Jiang Chun. Your ancestor has been killed by me. How dare you, a disciple of the royal family? Come here. Jiang Chun thought to himself. He narrowed his eyes and stared at the young man of the royal family without saying a word. At this moment, the young man of the royal family walked through the crowd with a proud look. When he came here, his eyes locked on Jiang Chun. He nodded gently and said, "Not bad. It's worth it for me to take action." It's said that the royal family doesn't have many disciples, but every one of them is a powerhouse. The royal clan has a powerful bloodline. It's said that they possess the ancient golden body bloodline. That's a physique that's comparable to a saint physique. Many people were amazed, but there were also creatures from the great wide world who were not interested in this young man from the royal family. Someone even said bluntly, "This person is at most a branch of the royal family. Look at his hair, not every strand is golden. Only the direct descendants of the royal family, whose bloodline is extremely pure, will have golden strands of hair, like a string of suns hanging on their hair. My royal family doesn't have any branch families or direct descendants. There are no weaklings in the royal family." The royal young man was clearly offended by the person's words and tried to defend himself. Then, he looked at Jiang Chun again. "Do you dare to fight me?" At this moment, the royal youth opened his mouth and issued a challenge. However, he seemed to be very proud and aloof. He only asked Jiang Chun if he dared to accept the challenge. Perhaps, as long as Jiang Chun shook his head, he would not have to fight. However, for Jiang Chun, as long as his cultivation did not exceed that of a titled deity, it was all the same. It didn't matter if you had a mortal grade title, an earth grade title, or even a heaven grade title. Now, it was all the same to him. He would suppress them all. The most important thing was that this young man from the royal family had not reached the level of a titled deity. He was only a lower-level venerable god. Although Jiang Chun had just entered the mysterious god realm, the cultivation of a lower-level venerable god was too weak in Jiang Chun's eyes. "You don't deserve to fight him." Suddenly, a purple-gold light rushed over from afar, and an extremely domineering voice resounded in all directions. After a few breaths, the crowd saw a group of people coming from afar. They ran rampant all the way, and no one dared to stop them because this group of people was too special. The group of 10 people, all of whom were titled deities, and their titles were not low. All of them were earth-grade titles. Moreover, the title power of one of the older people had reached the heaven grade. These 10 people were none other than Zhang Lu and the others who had just come out of the Flourishing Age Academy. Now that the Flourishing Age Academy had arrived, the Academy naturally came out. Today, they had also received news that the ancient ruins in the Chong and Plain had opened, so they had come to take a look. Unexpectedly, as soon as they arrived, they saw someone challenging their boss. "You're just a lower-level venerable god. Where did you get the confidence to challenge my boss?" At this moment, Wakako walked over and stared at the young man from the royal family. His body was domineering, and when he opened and closed his eyes, there seemed to be endless sharp rays of light rotating in them. During this period of seclusion, Wakako had become more powerful. Not only had he become a titled deity, but he had also obtained an earth-grade title. Now, not only was he domineering, but he also gave people a sense of stability. How arrogant! The young man from the royal family said contemptuously, "Don't tell me you think you can fight me with an earth-grade title? Do you know that sometimes having a title is not a big deal? Heh, even without this title, I can still suppress you." Wakako was very domineering. After saying this, Wakako turned around and saluted Jiang Chun. Then he looked at the young man from the royal family again and asked, "Now it's my turn to ask you. Do you dare to fight me?" "There are 10 of us. You can pick one of us," Jianglu said with a simple and honest look on his face. Hearing this, the young man from the royal family's face suddenly darkened. "What the hell? You want me to pick one of them? How much are you looking down on me? A bunch of country bumpkins. Do they really not know how strong the disciples of the royal family are? The golden body bloodline allows them to have a physique comparable to a holy body. Their bodies are as strong as a rock. Even a titled deity might not be able to break through their physical defense." While everyone was mocking, Hualiani walked out from the group of 10. She smiled gently and looked at the young man from the royal family, saying, "Why don't you fight with me? I should be the weakest in this group." At this moment, the young man from the royal family was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He was furious and secretly thought that this group of people had gone too far. They were looking down on him too much. "All of you, step aside. Wait until I suppress that boss of yours. Then I'll teach you all a lesson one by one," the young man from the royal family said coldly. He pointed at Jiang Chun and said, "Do you dare to fight me?" "Sure, let's fight," Jiang Chun said softly with a look of indifference. Then, Jiang Chun stepped forward and beckoned the young man from the royal family, saying, "Come here." Chapter 1038. This royal youth was very strong. His blood chi soared into the sky, and the divine Tao laws in his body were like a dragon. He took a step forward, and his body was like a ferocious tiger with rays of divine light. With a punch, it was like a golden sun falling down. Boom! However, in the next moment, everyone saw the royal youth fly out directly. They only saw Jiang Chun strike out a palm, and then there was no more than, "This isn't appropriate. Impossible. He's just a Xian god. How can his combat power be so terrifying?" The creatures of the greater thousand world exclaimed. Some even rubbed their eyes hard, unable to believe what was happening in front of them. One had to know that the other party was a disciple from the royal family. Even if his bloodline was not pure, he was not someone that ordinary people could fight against. The most important thing was that in terms of realm, this royal youth had an absolute advantage. However, who would have thought that Jiang Chun would send the other party flying with just one palm? "That's it? It can't be? That's it? Are you for real? That's it?" At this moment, Wakako and the others were surprised and could not believe it. They thought that since this royal youth was so arrogant and confident, his combat power must be extraordinary. Perhaps he could really make Jiang Chun take him seriously. However, who would have thought that it would be over with just one palm? "That's too weak, right?" Jianglu was very honest. He frowned and said doubtfully, "He's so weak, yet he's still jumping around like that. Is it really okay?" At this moment, the royal youth's face was pale. After being hit by Jiang Chen's palm, his physical body almost collapsed. Now, he was weak all over. The divine power in his body had been scattered, and he could only lie on the ground on his back. It was difficult for him to even move his fingers. Can such a person be considered a genius in your greater thousand world? At this moment, Jiang Chen also had a puzzled look on his face. This royal youth's strength was indeed too weak for Jiang Chun. Of course, Jiang Chun himself did not realize how terrifying his combat power was now. His spine had transformed into a dragon, and he had shed several thousand spirit bodies. In addition to the transformation of his tiger bones and the blossoming of his rose and thorn flowers, his combat strength had reached an indescribable level. Even Jiang Chun himself didn't know how strong he was now. "He's not considered a genius in our great wide world. He's just a little stronger than us," someone said. "If the direct descendants of the royal family were here, you would have been defeated long ago." Around them, a group of people from the great thousand world spoke up, as if they wanted to save some face. In response, Jiang Chun chuckled, then looked at Jiang Lu and the others and said, "Do you want to try?" "That's exactly what I was thinking." Wakako immediately stepped forward. Purple chi erupted from his body, and his eyes seemed to contain endless domineering aura. Everyone, I think you're mistaken, right? There are only a few cultivators from the 6 realms here, but we outnumber you by several times. A being from the greater 1,000 realms mocked. Oh. Jiang Chun was stunned for a moment. He looked at the person who spoke and said, "What's wrong? Do you want to have a group fight?" No, 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 it's not a group fight. That person said contemptuously, "It's us who will crush you." After that, he called out, and thousands of people attacked at the same time. They didn't even want to say anything. They raised their hands and punched. In an instant, this side of the world changed color. The attacks covered the sky like a storm, covering everything here. From a distance, this place looked like it was raining cats and dogs, but it also looked like it was raining fire. "It's just 1,000 people," Jiangchen said softly. When his voice fell, the divine power in his body surged, and his hands suddenly formed a seal. In a few breaths, the formation runes erupted and danced around him like golden spiritual snakes. After a few more breaths, the formation runes condensed, and with a tremor, a defensive formation rose. Jiang Chun and the others were enveloped by the brilliant light curtain, which looked like a canopy covering the sky. Then they looked up and smiled at the group of people from the great 1,000 world outside the formation. Formation? Humph! How can a mere formation stop me? At this moment, in the great 1,000 world, several cultivators who were proficient in formations shouted angrily. Then a large number of formation runes fell. In just a few breaths, the formation set up by Jiang Chun was directly destroyed. Then, the sky full of attacks fell like a raging wave, wave after wave. "You people are really shameless." Zhang Lu was furious. He took a step forward and displayed the celestial body. Like a giant, he stood in front of Jiang Chun and the others. Then, Jiang Chun held up his hands like 2 golden boulders and blocked all the attacks falling from the sky. When the seemingly violent attacks fell on Jiang Lu's palms, only a series of explosions and roars were heard. They couldn't even scratch his skin. This is a holy body, an archaic holy body? At this moment, many people exclaimed. They all knew that this kind of holy body could be said to be the strongest physical body, and the honest young man in front of them had an even more unusual holy body. Obviously, it had advanced. One victory, one life. You guys go and pick up a few lives yourselves. Jiang Chen waved his hand and said, "From now on, nothing is worth anything. Only life is worth the most. I've been in seclusion for a long time. It's time to move my legs. I haven't fought for a long time." At this moment, Zhang Lu and the others rushed out like tigers and wolves into a flock of sheep. They used all their means. It was very violent, but also very simple. For example, Zhang Lu, Wakako, and Dongfang Wushuang didn't even use their divine skills. They directly attacked with their physical bodies. Wherever they went, no one could stop them. On the other side, Ghost Shadow, Dao beside Xiao, Qingyi formed a seal with his hands and suddenly pressed it into the void. In an instant, countless ferocious ghosts appeared out of thin air. They wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves and swallowed many people directly. Of course, there were also a few people who didn't attack. For example, Bai Fengyu, Nayland Meyer, and Hua Liani. According to the 3 of them, they only needed to be in charge of beauty. As for fighting and killing, they would leave it to Zhang Lu and the others. However, there was still one person who didn't attack. This person was Hun Gang. He stood beside Jiang Chun and didn't attack, but his eyes were filled with fighting spirit and anger. "I heard some news. The godly realm has compromised?" Hun Gang said in a deep voice. "Are we just going to wait until the godly realm is destroyed?" Hearing this, Jiang Chen's eyes flashed with a trace of helplessness and bitterness. He nodded and sighed. The strength of the 2 sides is not on the same level at all. When the emperors of the great 1,000 world arrive, the 6 realms are destined to be destroyed. Now, since the great 1,000 world is willing to give the 6 realms a chance, we can only accept it. Speaking of this, Jiang Chun was also resentful. There was a wisp of anger burning in his heart that he couldn't vent. Everyone knew that the six realms had compromised, but the great thousand world was still so high and mighty as if they were doing charity to the six realms. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.